Gestapo title.
Here we go. You hear those bells, you hear those chimes. It's TruthWire time. That's right, I rhymed. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show, everybody. I am your host, Greg Pasta Jardula. This is the TruthWire, and of course, I'm here along with
Fiorella. Who else?
Could have been Matt Weinglass. Could have been Edwin DeJesus. Could have been Jayme CheeseSlice on the ones and twos. Well, yeah, nobody can replace you, fam. They're all pretenders. Let's just get that out of the way. Fam, we have a great interview that we taped with Professor Marandi. We're going to play it towards the end of the show. That's why the late time today. So I want to thank everybody for adjusting to our schedule. Since you're adjusting, please do us a favor. Hit the like, hit the share. Let's get it out there. We need the help with the algorithmic algorithm. The algorithmic algorithm. I don't even know how you say it anymore, but the suppression against us. The way to help us out is to like, to share, to do what you can do to help us share the show. So please go ahead and do so. And of course, all the links are down below. We do have a Give, Send, Go, which we'll be talking about. It's quieted down over the last few days, guys. The news cycle has gone crazy. Fee's been out there giving us up-to-dates of what's going on, and this is a hard one to understand. I can tell you on the mainstream media, fam, they're playing this guy, Patrick Bet-David, all over every single channel. He's telling the lies. And this is why they had that Mockingbird media in place, guys. This is why when they did that whole Twitter files, they made you believe it was just conservatives. So therefore, they can silence those out there who are going to tell you the truth right now at these times and at these moments. But we're not going to let them silence Fam. Fam's going to bring us up to date about what's going on. Fam has also visited Iran once before, so she has a little feel of what's going on, paying close attention to the region. You have a video with critical perspectives with Vanessa Beeley out there as well. I like everybody. I shared it on my Twitter, but it's on Fam's Twitter. Go and check it out if you want to get deep down the rabbit hole. In the game. Go ahead, Fam.
We're gonna do something tomorrow. And the thing is, Vanessa's in Lebanon, and of course, Lebanon is also under attack now, as of last night, our time, early morning, their time today. And so there's a lot of our friends that are out there are in danger because Israel basically released a what is it, like a layout basically saying we're going to go after all of these neighborhoods, all of these districts, and you need to get out. And if you're not out, that's your fault. And so, a lot of people there are actually in vulnerable positions because they also bombed the road to the airport last night, which is, of course, what they do. And so we're going to try to record something tomorrow. So yeah, guys, I mean, we didn't get a chance because, of course, this all started over the weekend during negotiations. And I think a lot of us knew that the United States and Israel were not serious about negotiating anything with Iran. They need Iran to go down in order to achieve greater Israel, in order to achieve the Abraham Accords, to really fulfill this promise that Israel has that they're going to take over the entire region. Iran stands as the last bastion for the West Asian region for the resistance. The resistance looks to Iran. When you understand what Iran signifies for the resistance, then you understand how critical this is. And for Iran, as the professor will say later, this is a war not of choice. This wasn't a choice at this point. Like, if they didn't respond, they would be finished. And in many ways, we talk about an existential war. If you don't, there are moments when we have seen where war has come, where if there's not a response towards the bully, towards the aggressor, you will be defeated. And we have seen, for example, this happen in Venezuela. And we'll talk about that, where, Venezuela has a gun to their head. I mean, any of us who have been to Venezuela, who know Venezuela, know that some of the recent statements released were not what they would normally release. And we know that there's a literal gun pointed to their head. We know what happens when the United States tries to negotiate or tries to infiltrate itself in a government. They try to take control of every single aspect. And Iran, of course, is it's the Persian force. It has just millennia of experience in dealing with war and understanding the West and understanding how they function. This isn't a young civilization. This is the cradle of civilization in many ways. When you look at the region and when you look at how they have operated, they're very great chess players. They're in fact among the best in the world. And they don't do things just out of impulse. And I think what's happened in the last few days has shown that, a lot of people are hoping that Iran, are praying that Iran really takes down the Zionist entity, which is unfair in many ways because they are the only ones, along with the resistance axis, doing it. I mean, we're not seeing the involvement of others. And I will talk about that deeply with Vanessa, but we can talk about it too later, Pasta. The lack of involvement from China and Russia. Is that necessary? Is it necessary? Is it not? And so on and so forth. So yeah, I just wanted to lay it all out there and get started. Go ahead, Pasta.
Number one, I knew you'd find a way to bring chess into your little soliloquy there. Okay, fam, you like to play chess, you're good at it. You were the best in the house. I'm not going to argue that anymore. But when you are talking about chess, it is really upsetting to me right now. A lot of the things you and Vanessa have been talking about for quite some time. A lot of people had said, well, you're pushing it. You're too hard. You're too hard on Russia. You're too hard on China. Now we're talking about this needs to be done. The attack and the Iranian government needs to fall. They like to say regime, of course, all over the TV screens because regime sounds worse. They need to fall for the greater Israel project. But this is also about taking out a lot of the Belt and Road initiatives, right? The Silk Road, what China's for in the future as far as their Belt and Road initiative, which, Iran is a big part of it. So that is even more frustrating to me that China's sitting back in a ways. It's like, wait a second, this is your whole Belt and Road initiative. What do you think you're just going to be able to talk your way out of problems? You know what I'm saying? I mean, I nobody wants war, but I mean, I think there's a lot of people in the West who kind of look at Russia and China as the last chance to stand up to the Western bully in Israel, and they're not doing it. And that's very frustrating as well, because it's really just, the United States and the West is shitting all over their Belt and Road Initiative project. And it's like they just won't even kind of like do anything. You know what I'm saying? It's like they won't. They like to sit on the sidelines. And I know that pisses a lot of people off, fam, when you say that. But that seems to be true right now.
Yeah, and I can talk probably for hours about the differences as to why they're not doing it. And it's not about taking their sides or not. It's just about talking about what it is, and it's effectively comes down to the ideological aspect of Iran and the resistance versus the pragmatic and capital economic driven desires of China, especially and Russia. But China, of course, is you're right. It's the ultimate goal here in terms of the attacks coming from the United States. Also, of course, the competition for these resources that going into this AI technocratic surveillance state, all of that is combined. But you know, there's more to it than just one or the other. There's a lot of things at play here. And so, what guys? I mean, all of you have known what's happened this
Yeah.
weekend, right? What happened on
Sam,
Saturday,
can I
and
can I show this just really
yeah.
quickly throughout the whole the guys throughout the show today? You guys, please go to our Give Send Go if you got a chance. I want to do it in the beginning right now. We've hit a little bit of a snag. It's been a weekend, but we have a lot of stuff going on. If you want to help out independent journalism, givesendgo.com/election integrity matters. But it's more than just election integrity. It's times like this where we really need your help too as well, because we want to get on the ground, we want to get busy, and we want to get things done. Fam, please go right into it and start us off and explain what's going on over here, because a lot of people are confused. They don't understand Iran. Like I said, they're propagandized, and they think that this regime is going to fall. Your thoughts?
Sam, I don't know. For me, it's hard to even hear what you're saying because
Yeah.
I'm over here in South America, but I've lived for a long time in Russia, and you know, I've been to West Asia, and for me, what you even say, I don't even want to address it because it doesn't matter to the people of Iran, the people of Lebanon, and it's not a disrespect to you. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, like, for me, it's like, who gives a crap what the United States public that lives in Boca Raton and is a Zionist think? They're going to think like this. They're brainwashed. They're propagandized. How many times can we sit and argue after a genocide to try to convince them, like, what Iranians are too busy trying not to get killed, and you know, the people of the region are too busy trying to get killed, being on the receiving end of bombs, and we have these morons influencers here that are basically just, you know, selling themselves out for clicks and saying a bunch of bullshit. Like, there comes to a certain point where you just like, okay, you're not relevant. Like, we have to save our people, we have to do what we have to do. Like,
Yeah.
it's not our job to convince you anymore, you know. We can do it, like, we can talk about these things, but overall the sentiment is like, you know, death to America, as we will discuss, and that means death to the empire, right? And I've heard this chant before in person, and it's not a chant of death to the American people, but is death to what it represents, what the United States, what Washington represents. And we in the United States, right, Americans of the United States, we should also want an end to that. We should be shouting, because what Iran is doing right now is fighting the Epstein cabal. They're fighting the very same people that are psychopaths, that are in charge of our government, that are in charge of our entire defense industry, our healthcare, and that are going from abusing little children to bombing them in schools. And so in a way, you know, we can look at this logically, logistically, militarily, geopolitically, but we can also look to it from a symbolic way. They are fighting evil. They are straight up the ones that are fighting evil, and it's taking place in a place where there's so much, you know, religious or you know, attachment to this region. I mean, this is a war between good and evil. Ultimately, that's what it represents. You're not going to tell me that the good people are the ones killing kids, that are abusing them. Those aren't the good people. And you know, I think if we want to survive as a civilization in the United States in any way, shape, or form, we need to actually want a death to that, because that doesn't represent any of us here.
Yeah.
That doesn't represent the majority of people I know. I spoke to my family, and they're like, they're not telling us the number of dead. They're not talking about the bombings on the schools, on the hospitals. They're not showing any of this. And so what are they doing? They're watching alternative media because they're not getting the truth from mainstream media. And it's like a lot of people are able to ignore this still yet again because it's not happening to us. But I hope to God that the price of oil goes crazy and that Americans start paying the fucking attention that they need to pay, because it finally affects them. Because right now I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing so many people just completely tuned out, completely just saying, wow, this is bad. It is better than it's been in previous times, I will say. We're farther along, thank God, than 23 years ago, where everybody was just brainwashed into going into war and killing every Muslim or Arab person they saw. But we're not where we need to be yet. And it is our job as people, anybody watching this show, to go and talk to people about what's happening, to go and talk to people about what they're not telling us. And I think it's important that we do that. Anything to say, fam, to that?
No, I got it. It's kind of cool in that whole statement you said there. Like, I get it. Like at this point, my friend Pishman used to tell me, he's like, look, for all the lefties out there who are talking about, protecting, gay rights in Iran or, those kind of things. It's like, we don't care about any of that stuff. We just want you to stop bombing us. Start there. Stop bombing us. Let us live. And you spelled it out very simple right there. A lot of these people in these regions right now, they're just concerned about staying alive, not getting killed. We, unfortunately, we have the duty of sorts. And I get it too, as well. Like, that's why I think there's a great place for people to go watch you and Vanessa, and obviously a lot of the times when I bring you into my world, when I start asking the simple questions and stuff, it's to address what's going on in the mainstream. I get it that there's a lot of people in Boca Raton, Zionists, that aren't going to change their ways, but I do believe there are a lot of independent people out there. And these terms that you've been using, the Epstein coalition, the Epstein cabal, the Epstein class, all whatever ones you want to use, I think people are starting to get it. You made it a point to say this isn't about nation states anymore. This is about oligarchs or technocrats that are manipulating nation states to thrust these wars upon us. Right now, it hasn't come to our doorstep, but I think that Americans do need to wake up. And I believe there is a silent class of people out there that are waking up. And so I appreciate them watching the show. And they're going to get a lot of perspective when they see shows with us and Professor Mohammed Morandi, who's been making the rounds out there. I try to ask some questions that might not be asked or just kind of take a step down. But I think it is important we lay out the basics right now, because a lot of people, not only can they not find Iran on the map, fam, but there's a lot of people who are so suspect of the United States government right now and Trump that I think it's good that we kind of lay it out and bring it home. I'm still confused about how this is going to look, the logistics of it. I would like to talk to maybe a military personnel. Maybe we can get Karen Kwiatkowski back on to talk about the bombing, about where it's coming from. A lot of the bases in that region have been hit. And, I know that Professor Mohammed Morandi has a reputation sometimes of talking highly of Iran, but they might not bring the beef, behind what he's saying. But from what I'm reading, a lot of stuff over there, it's just because they don't have the puffery of a Donald Trump who will say, fam, we hit that base and we hit it hard. Like nobody's ever seen. He'll talk about these things. It was beautiful the way we hit that nuclear facility and whatnot. They'll brag about it. They'll talk about it. They'll show it over and over again. Iran doesn't necessarily have that mentality, but as I'm looking and reading in some of these independent sources, when the United States hit that nuclear facility in Iran, Iran struck back a base in Qatar. And it was kind of downplayed, but it damaged and took out a lot of that base when they did that as a response to them bombing the nuclear facility. So now we hear about these other facilities and these other bases being hit around the way where the United States is trying to downplay it. I'd like to know more about that. I would like to know more about the capability of Iran. I believe personally, from what I've spoken to people, when we spoke to Mohammed Morandi, we've spoke to other people who know that region well, their integrity, their hope, their pride, their strength of the Iranian people, they stand behind their government. Like Professor Morandi said, and you'll see later on, it's like not everybody's going to like their government. They're not going to like everything they do, but they're going to stand behind it. And what we've witnessed when we've gone to a lot of these countries in Latin America is that the number one thing the people of those regions want is their national sovereignty. And that's whether they be conservative, leftist, whatever. They want a right to decide what to do with their own resources. They want a right to pick their own government. I think the Iranian people want that too. And they understand the greater threat, despite some of their differences with the people running their government. They stand behind it, despite what you might hear, especially against the Israeli and United States forces. So I'm looking forward to this segment right here where you're just going to lay it on out and give us the goods. I would definitely encourage people to go and join Fiorella's Telegram channel. Stuff pops up there all the time. It's a good break from Twitter sometimes because you can get lost in the bullshit in Twitter. But a lot of information that she shares on Twitter, she also shares on her Telegram channel. So go check it out. Fam, take it away and let us know what's going on.
Yeah, so Saturday, the United States, and you can pull up the first article, Jayme. It's the Al Jazeera article, right? So the United States and Israel conducted a bombing on Iran, targeting Tehran during the time where there were ongoing negotiations, and reportedly Iran had agreed to the majority, if not all, of the demands from the United States. I mean, this is the reality. And this has been the most intense escalation since June 2025, right? When we talk about the 12-day war and that whole thing. And a lot of us were telling, Iran, and we're talking about how this is ridiculous. You shouldn't even entertain them because they're not serious. They're going to attack you eventually. This is negotiating with the United States, and this is told to Russia as well, is pretty much like saying you're going to cut something right now, but then something else is going to come back, later at a later time, because they need you to go down. Like, that's their intent. So if you scroll down, Jayme, to all the way down to where it says February the 26, 27, 28. So during that time, on February 26th, they had a third round of these nuclear talks in Geneva, if you guys recall. And there was the mediation in Oman, and they were saying that there's progress and that things are going to be talked about in Vienna next week. And then on the 27th of February, Oman's foreign minister says Iran agreed to degrade its current stockpile of nuclear material, which pissed a lot of people off, because a lot of people are like, why would you do that? And so they had agreed to the lowest level, effectively to unrefined levels. And President Trump said he prefers diplomacy, but warns that all options remain if diplomacy fails. Then on the 28th is when Israel launched coordinated strikes on Iranian targets in and around Tehran, so that it was retaliated immediately by Iran with airstrikes, missile strikes in all over the region. This is unprecedented, by the way. This is historic. They were able to target Qatar, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and Kuwait, where there are U.S. military bases. And this is so important because the United States was immediately, effectively a party to the conflict. And the United States, of course, was directly involved. They couldn't even deny it. So they quickly admitted that was it. And so we saw, and Jayme, there's a lot of videos that we're going to show you. You can just put the volume down, and I'll talk through them. Right? Yeah. Go ahead.
So it's funny because this whacking technique that they're using, we'll get into that later down the road, where the United States is kind of conducting Donald Trump, this Don Corleone style. We hit Barzini this morning. We hit, what I'm saying? Like, they whack out the top of the mafias, in their case, the other governments. But the thing that's so interesting to me is that when you talked about, and you showed there, it pissed off a lot of people that they were giving up so much. Do you think there was a sense from Iran? Because this is the thing you'll see on the mainstream media, that guy again, right? Those influencers, this Patrick Bet-Davids. Oh, now they want to talk. Had Iran just complied, fam, none of this would have happened. Now they want to talk, but what you're showing is they were complying. Not only were they complying, they were over complying. Do you get a sense that the Iranian government knew that even though they were going to comply, Israel and the United States had already made up their mind to hit them no matter what? Go ahead, fam.
Yeah, I think the resistance knew. I mean, they do this all the time. So they did this during the 12-day war. They've done this, in the Russian-Ukraine negotiations. This is what they do. This is their modus operandi. So this is like a normal thing. You can't trust what they're saying. And a lot of the people I was talking to were saying that Iran learned from their mistakes during the 12-day war. And they did because they were ready. This isn't something that you prepare for, just you're reacting and that's it. This took preparation. What Iran is doing right now, what they continue to do right now as they're facing continuous, because right now it's 11 o'clock there, I believe, while they're facing targeting from multiple Western governments and Israel, you have to prepare for that. You have to have your things ready, and they were prepared for that. They were 100% prepared for that. So I do think that they knew that was the gigantic possibility. So Jayme, if you can just play that video while I talk. It's just a short video without sound. This was when they started targeting 18 strikes. Israel started the strikes targeting the Tehran Judicial Palace and the Supreme Court. There were assassinations, and this was before they even admitted that it was joined with Washington. But I knew that it was joined with Washington because it was just obvious. And then the next one is another video, and you guys can just see that there was an assassination attempt towards President Pezeshkian, and he wasn't killed there. And Khamenei was not there. So there was a report that he was moved to a more secure location, but there was Isfahan, Qom, Damascus, Karaj, and Karamabad were also attacked, as well as Lebanon. So these cities are not, in Iran. So at the same time that they were attacking Iran, they started attacking in Syria. They started attacking in Iraq, in Lebanon, and in other cities across Iran. So this was a multi-pronged attack. And I will say it in the interview with Marandi, the ISIS fighters had been released in Iraq. They had also released the Al-Qaeda affiliated Takfiri forces, Jolani forces in Syria. And so this is their plan, is to kind of surround Iran with a multi-pronged attack coming from the former Syria, coming from forces in Iraq that are fighting the resistance forces in Iraq, because there are resistance forces in Iraq. There's some resistance forces in Syria as well. And of course you have Hezbollah in Lebanon. And so that's their plan, right? And their plan is also to do that with Turkey, to have Turkey, of course, also engage the pro-US forces there. And so they started this. And then the other part of this was the Gulf states. They've been using Saudi Arabia and the UAE especially, and Jordan, to effectively serve as vassal states for Israel and protect Israel and pretty much alienate and target Iran. And that's what we're seeing here. That's why Iran targeted them, because they've been pretty much protecting the United States and Israel. So they're fair game too, because they are also participating in this war, right? So Fam, anything to say to that so far?
You know what? I do have a question. It would have been better for Mohammed Morandi there, but I'll ask it to you after. But I'm gonna let this go. They are hitting these spots, right? They're hitting them pretty hard. This is how they strike back. And the Straits of Hormuz, right, has been shut down. They're not letting anything go through this. So it seems like, even though that, there's the superior power within the West as far as, Air Force and bombing and missiles and stuff, it seems like that what you just talked about Iran preparing this for quite some time, it's really paying dividends, because they're methodically attacking certain spots and shutting down commerce in the Persian Gulf. It's like you said, they had to plan. This is not just reactionary. They're very methodical. Yeah. They're playing chess. So yeah, please carry on, because I want to know how this is going to affect and when we're going to start seeing body bags, because there's a lot of American personnel in the areas they're hitting, right? And is that going to deter Americans from wanting to get involved, or are they going to be pissed off and they're going to want blood on their hands? That's the next question, I think. Will they want more attacks, or say enough is enough?
I think some people are going to start shifting their perspective and get really pissed off soon, because what we're about to uncover is the extent of the United States' lack of capabilities. The United States cannot engage in hand-to-hand combat with Iran. They're not capable of doing that. That would be a failed mission. What they're more likely to do is have Israel do that, a ground invasion in Lebanon, which it seems like that's what Israel is preparing for, a ground invasion in parts of Tehran. And I think the United States and Israel could resort to using nuclear weapons, which is something I didn't really get a clear answer on. I think that we would have to really talk with a military strategist to further get on. But if anybody is going to use a nuclear weapon, guys, it's going to be us or Israel. I mean, this, you know, that we have the Samson option, we have other things on the table. Iran has said multiple times, several people, their own people have asked them, you know, you don't target residential areas, you don't target civilians. You should, you know, you could easily end all of Israel right now. And they say, yeah, we could easily do that. But we, in our moral code, do not want to harm civilians. And it's great, but it's also what the United States and Israel know.
Yeah.
That they won't go that far.
Fam, I think you said something that somebody better make a phone call to Laura Loomer and Ben Shapiro. If they have a ground attack, they might get called up by the IDF, you know, to do their service, to go.
Send them.
Send
them over.
See, Marjorie Taylor Greene made the Jayme was sharing it, right? Like, it says like, oh, Israel's calling up 100,000 troops to, you know, and that there's got a ground attack going on. Somebody call up you know, Laura Loomer and Ben Shapiro, get them ready to go. So that was
call the entire Trump family.
Yeah.
Right? They should be the first at the front line. Send the Trump kids and the Trump grandchildren to the front lines. Right? And this is, we can talk about this later. This is where you all come in. You shouldn't allow them. They're already talking about, you know, sending people. I had cousins in the military, guys. Okay. I don't want them to go. This is the thing. Like, they send regular people to die because you don't matter to them. You are disposable. They don't care. They'll talk it up and say you are heroes. You are this and that. You're nothing but fodder for their, you know, imperialist, pedophilic ploy. I mean, that's really all this is about. Like,
I feel like you could have a beer with Donald Trump, fam. Like, he's just
fam, I'm gonna slap you.
A cool everyday person, right? Come on, like, he cares about you, right? Like, he don't give a shit about you, you dummies out there. He don't give a fuck about you. Donald Trump could care two shits about you, you idiots. Sorry, fam. There's the real pasta.
Okay, so during this time, let's go to the next one here. There was something I want to point out that Vanessa posted. She said, unconfirmed reports also claim the use of Tomahawk land attack missiles alongside Israeli Air Force strikes targeting a specific site in the capital. The United States is giving Tomahawks, and it's not just the Tomahawks. We've seen the ATACMS also were seen in Tehran, Raytheon parts. You know, I don't know if you see one up front, which I have. They have the label where they're made. Okay, so you know an American missile because it's literally in English, and it'll say, you know, Raytheon, or it'll say, what's the other one? What was the other company? I'm blanking on the other company, but it'll say like Raytheon, Northrop Grumman. It will say just pretty much any of those, and it'll have the label. It will have all the labels on it, so you'll know what it is, right? And so this is I just wanted to point that out, that early on we were seeing the missiles. Now we're going to go over this. We're going to cut it. It's a long speech, but I think we should go over, I think, most of it.
Okay.
Because I think people need to hear, if you haven't heard what Donald Trump said, it is one of the most warmongering speeches I have ever witnessed from a president. And this is, like, for me, Obama and Bush, you know, are top two worst presidents we've ever had. And, you know, when it was 9/11, I was a child. I mean, I didn't know anything about anything. I mean, I was just, you know, watching this happen. And I was in conservative Republican Missouri. So the the feelings, the sentiments were very much pro invasion, very much jingoistic, very much. And to look back on it as an adult, the manipulation of people's emotions that they use. I mean, I remember teachers crying, everybody crying, being so upset, and all of that. And I had it closest to New York because my dad worked in the city in Manhattan the year before. So he would go through the Trump Towers, or the Trump Towers, the Twin Towers, Jesus Christ. And so we would always like visit the Twin Towers. We would always be there. And so for us, you're watching this and they're telling you that, it's these terrorists, and you're saying, oh, this is so sad. This is so sad. But they were really, really manipulating people's emotions. And a lot of the people born after 2003, right, don't know this and don't remember. But it is worth remembering that they're using the same exact language of making you fear the people of Iran, of turning you against them in an effort to say that we need this war. And I think it's working less because those of us that remember are now adults. But also like this next generation, like my sister, they may not remember, but they understand, based on everything that's happened with Gaza, based on everything that's been happening with ICE and all this other stuff, they don't buy what Trump is selling. So there is a little bit of hope in that, because they were already angry. And in the last month or so, the radicalization of her, like my sister and of other people, has been extreme. I mean, they're just like, oh my God, you were right about the Epstein stuff. I'm like, thank you, 7 years late, but all right, like now you get it. Like she was like, like, this is crazy. What are they doing? Like, I think we're seeing them understand what we've been talking about. And I think now is the moment to really, really get in there and really make these connections with what happened back then.
I remember, fam, doing one of those shows in particular that you would ask me, why is it important to recognize who these people are? And I'm like, because these are the people who run the world. These are the people who are calling the shots. Now now we have all the information. The Epstein Cabal is the one calling the shots. Everybody, all the work that Epstein had done, connected to Marian Adelson now. You can connect it to Bill Gates. You connect it to all the elites. You can connect it right to Donald Trump. Let's go ahead and play this video, guys. I want to remind everybody all the ways to help out the show are in the chat. Our Give, Send, Go is there. We haven't had any action over this, so if somebody wants to reignite the flame, USA, Donald Trump here in West Palm Beach, fam, right? Please, this guy, he's the worst.
In 2000, they knew and were probably involved with the attack on the USS Cole. Many died. Iranian forces killed and maimed hundreds of American service members in Iraq. The regime's proxies have continued to launch countless attacks against American forces stationed in the Middle East in recent years, as well as U.S. naval and commercial vessels and international shipping lanes. It's been mass terror, and we're not going to put up with it any longer. From Lebanon to Yemen and Syria to Iraq, the regime has armed, trained, and funded terrorist militias that have soaked the earth with blood and guts. And it was Iran's proxy, Hamas, that launched the monstrous October 7th attacks on Israel, slaughtering more than 1,000 innocent people, including 46 Americans, while taking 12 of our citizens hostage. It was brutal. Something like the world has never seen before. Iran is the world's #1 state sponsor of terror, and just recently killed tens of thousands of its own citizens on the street as they protested. It has always been the policy of the United States, in particular, my administration, that this terrorist regime can never have a nuclear weapon. I'll say it again. They can never have a nuclear weapon. That is why in Operation Midnight Hammer last June, we obliged at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. After that attack, we warned them never to resume their malicious pursuit of nuclear weapons. and we sought repeatedly to make a deal. We tried. They wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. Again, they wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. They didn't know what was happening. They just wanted to practice evil. But Iran refused, just as it has for decades and decades. They've rejected every opportunity to renounce their nuclear ambitions, and we can't take it anymore. Instead, they attempted to rebuild their nuclear program and to continue developing long-range missiles that can now threaten our very good friends and allies in Europe, our troops stationed overseas, and could soon reach the American homeland.
Here it is.
Imagine how emboldened this regime would be if they ever had and actually were armed with nuclear weapons as a means to deliver their message. For these reasons, the United States military is undertaking a massive and ongoing operation to prevent this very wicked, radical dictatorship from threatening America and our core national security interests. We are going to destroy their missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground. It will be totally, again, obliterated. We're going to annihilate their Navy. We're going to ensure that the region's terrorist proxies can no longer destabilize the region or the world and attack our forces and no longer use their IEDs or roadside bombs, as they are sometimes called, to so gravely wound and kill thousands and thousands of people, including many Americans.
Oh, God. All right, I need to stop it here for a second. We'll let him talk, and I need to stop it. But do you see how he is saying that Iran is such a dangerous terrorist dictatorship that it's possible for them to attack Americans on American soil, and everything he's talking about Iran doing is what Israel does every single day of the week. Every single day of the week. I mean, even down to the IEDs that he's talking about, that's what Israel did in Lebanon. They blew up people using their phones. They used all sorts of bombs to blow them up. He talked about the October 7th attacks, not one single mention about the genocide where hundreds of thousands, and I believe the extent indirectly millions of people have been affected in Gaza. Doesn't talk an ounce about that. Everything he talks about and accuses Iran of is exactly what Israel does. And the thing is, he's talking to a crowd of people that in person that buy his bullshit. And his audience that he's talking to in that aspect that he thinks he's talking to is, his audience, MAGA. But what I think others are hearing, people like us, people who remember 9/11, we're like, holy shit, this is worse than anything George Bush ever said. This language, this rhetoric is just on another level. Yeah. And it really takes it up a notch. And so I feel it is my duty to remind people that we've been here before, and we cannot allow this shit to continue. I mean, this is just, and Americans are going to die, yes, but it's not even about that only. It's about the fact that they're lying to you and using these lies to kill innocent people, because none of the people that I met in Iran were terrorists or bad people. There are bad people everywhere, but I'm telling you that was one of the places where I was treated so amazing, better than anywhere else, like where my voice was valued as a woman. Like I didn't even expect that. I mean, it's not that I expected them to be what the United States says, but I didn't expect that. I didn't expect the level of just intellect and professionalism and intelligence and knowledge that Iran has, because my whole life I've been told that it's the opposite. I was told not to go to Iran. I was told that, it's a dangerous place. But it was beautiful, and I felt safe, and the people were very smart and very kind, and they didn't hate us. So what he's saying there is just ghastly to me.
Fam, I don't know if you heard, but I even used the term IED to try to spark an emotional memory of back in the days. IEDs were talked about killing so many Americans, so I used that term. And I also blamed all the Shiites on the world, all their attacks. I connected it directly to Iran, the worst regime ever. And by the way, once we're done with this here, you know where we're going next. China. But you did hear those two things where he did that, right? Like he did. This is whoever wrote that speech is like, we have to tickle the emotions, right? The reactionary emotions of America, because they run on emotions, right? They're not logical. They're so myopic. It's just all about reactions and feelings. Oh, they hit us. We need to hit them. Talk about the IEDs, because so many people lost loved ones to IEDs because it was the only way Iraqis could fight back. You know, these improvised explosive devices on the roads, which, by the way, every single time they sent a politician out there, they would give them this certain armed vehicle that couldn't be destroyed by those IEDs. Why weren't all the troops out there riding around in IEDs in these machines to protect them? These type of stuff, right? So it's kind of crazy that they do this shit all the time. And then to connect he went to the USS Cole, which was bombed off the coast of Yemen, right? Not too far in Yemen. It was a small boat that went there. It was a suicide bombing of sorts, and maimed and killed a lot of sailors too as well. But he's also connecting that. And anytime you see a hit from any Yemenis, any Yemen or Oman, people from Oman, they're going to try to connect it. If they're a Shiite, they will try to connect the dots and say, no matter what, this is about Iran. It's always Iran. This is how they can say that they're the number one sponsor of terror. Now, they don't have the connections whatsoever, but if they can somehow convince you of that stuff, they can then justify their war, and that's what they're doing.
Yeah. No, it's all tied to Iran. I mean, in a way, the resistance is, but people independently, these nations independently act on their own. And the resistance groups within also act on their own. So, he doesn't know that. Americans don't know that. I mean, most people don't even know where these places are. Like it's you're trying to make sense here to that. But I think there is a sense of that you can get of just this evil darkness coming from him right now. It is just very bad. Let's play the rest.
Let's play the rest of the speech, fam. China, that's next on the list. We can't forget about China.
Not obtain a nuclear weapon. It's a very simple message. They will never have a nuclear weapon. This regime will soon learn that no one should challenge the strength and might of the United States Armed Forces. I built and rebuilt our military in my first administration, and there is no military on earth even close to its power, strength, or sophistication. My administration has taken every possible step to minimize the risk to U.S. personnel in the region. Even so, and I do not make this statement lightly, the Iranian regime seeks to kill. The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties. That often happens in war. But we're doing this not for now. We're doing this for the future, and it is a noble mission. We pray for every service member as they selflessly risk their lives to ensure that Americans and our children will never be threatened by a nuclear-armed Iran. We ask God to protect all of our heroes in harm's way, and we trust that with his help, the men and women of the armed forces will prevail. We have the greatest in the world, and they will prevail. To the members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, the armed forces, and all of the police, I say tonight that you must lay down your weapons and have complete immunity, or in the alternative, face certain death. So lay down your arms. You will be treated fairly with total immunity, or you will face certain death. Finally, to the great, proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations. For many years, you have asked for America's help, but you never got it. No president was willing to do what I am willing to do tonight. Now you have a president who is giving you what you want. So let's see how you respond. America is backing you with overwhelming strength and devastating force. Now is the time to seize control of your destiny and to unleash the prosperous and glorious future that is close within your reach. This is the moment for action. Do not let it pass. May God bless the brave men and women of America's armed forces. May God bless the United States of America. May God bless you all.
Fam, that sounds so much just like what George Bush did when he was trying to make a pitch to the American people for war with Iraq, right? Like it's almost like the only difference is it was just a little Trumpified up where he talked, no president, unlike me, has built the military and rebuilt it again. You know, you wanted our help. No other president would do it, but I will. And a lot of people repeat that kind of same rhetoric. This president will do this, that no other president did. This president, well, I'm a little confused because this president was sitting there saying that all these other presidents, like Obama, right, took us to unnecessary wars, like the Bushes, which he pointed out, they all lied. They knew there was no weapons of mass destruction, but they lied and they went in anyway, right? Like he did that. So now it is, wait a second. This is the guy who's not straightening stuff up, the art of the deal, the big deal guy. This is the guy who's going to double down on the empire's tactics of wars. I mean, can people, you know what I'm saying? And I saw people in the very beginning of this second term. This is what it means to have peace through strength. Shut the front door with that crap, fam. Go right ahead, please.
The fact that he's saying there may be casualties and, you know, some Americans will die, but that's just, you know, the nature of war.
That's life, fam.
You all need to understand that it's not the nature of war for him and his family, for the predator elite class. You need to understand that you, as American citizens, need to understand that people are about to die for the Epstein cabal. They're about to die for these sick psychos by going into this war. I mean, who are you fighting for? You're not fighting for the United States of America, what it means, what it represents. That's not what you would be fighting for.
This is not, fam, we're fighting for the future for all the boys and girls because we can't let the regime,
Iran has no, and I tell this to anybody that will listen, Iran has no intention in actually hurting any American. And that goes against their religion. It goes against their beliefs. They won't do it. Yeah. Like, even if we want them to, even if some people are like, wait a minute, they will, or like they should. No, they won't do it. I'm telling you, they won't do it. You know, and the thing is, we would. The United States government would, in a heartbeat.
Does already displayed, fam. Already displayed we would. By the way, this look, I'm at this point right now where I say Trump is worse than Obama. Trump is almost he's paralleling George W. Bush, right? That's what he's doing, setting the Middle East on fire. The Wolfowitz doctrine. I can't deal with him anymore. Muted during Trump. I just can't fucking stomach it. I can't either. This guy is nauseating at this point. Lie after lie after lie. Broken promise after broken promise. And you see how this media was set up. You see how it was set up on X. You see how it was set up on YouTube. You see how it's set up on Rumble to make sure that they control the narrative. They all knew this was coming years ago. This is why it's all a setup. And they've captured media completely, right? They've either bought it off, fam. They've either go and co-opted it or silenced it as can be. And that's why you're hearing all this bullshit out there right now that makes no fucking sense. Zero fucking sense. This is part deux of George W. Bush's war in Iraq. He's doing the same thing in Iran right now. You know, and when he does say that, you talked about it, fam, you know, there might be casualties. There'll probably be more. Marco Rubio canceled his visit over to Israel, by the way, guys. Just want to let you know that. Like he said, they'll never put themselves in harm's way. But you, get in there, Charlie. Go fight for us. You're fighting for freedom. This is the same thing regurgitated and reprocessed and sped out once again. You've never been fighting for freedom. You've been fighting for the Epstein class for quite some time. You're fighting for rich men to get richer and poor people to fucking die when they think they're actually fighting for our freedoms. Sorry. No, that's not what it is. You've been duped.
Yeah, what's the phrase? You're gonna go die to fight rich men's wars. I mean, this is where's that movie? You know, go watch that movie with Tom Cruise about Vietnam. Like, you know, like
War
I
on the
mean,
4th of
this is the
July.
same. It's the same playbook. Yeah, that one. It's the same playbook over and over again. It's not just 9/11. It's Vietnam War. It's the Korean War. It's pretty much any war
Smedley
that
Butler.
the United States has conducted. But what you're underestimating here, Trump, and pretty much the majority of Americans that have no idea what Iran is their capabilities, their history, their resolve as well, their ideological stance, the spirit to why they're fighting. They are not afraid to die for what they believe in. They are not. Martyrdom is something that is sought. And the Ayatollah was seeking martyrdom. He was seeking to die. He was 86. He was already ill. Like you didn't. He knew where he was. He knew that where he was at that point in his home was not. He was in danger, and they still seek to live their life like that because that's what they believe in. So you can't fight against that. You either have that belief or you don't have it, and they have it. So these are the Iranian Air Force MiG-29s, and a lot of the Israelis immediately said that the Zionist fighter jets were dominating the skies in Tehran, but they weren't Israeli fighter jets. They can't even recognize their own fighter jets, but they were from Iran. And even Grok or whatever, the Twitter added context and said that was right. So a lot of people were
whose jet is that?
Out. These are Iran's jets. These are Iran's fighter jets.
Where's it flying over?
It's flying over Tehran.
Yeah.
But the Israelis were saying it was theirs. So one of the major things that happened, guys, I don't know if you remember, and I think this is historic, right? Dubai, because I don't know if you all know, but Dubai represents the Israel of the Arab world. Like anybody that's like pro-resistance or like, you know, hates like Israel also hates Dubai because Dubai has acted as a vassal for the United States. In particular, of course, Abu Dhabi, right? And so when Abu Dhabi was under attack, it was almost like attacking this very treacherous entity that stands with Israel against its own people, right? Who has always submitted and really gone after Iraq. And there's a lot of memes out there. I don't know if Jayme has any of them, but there's a lot of memes out there. The people that go to Dubai are largely influencers or people with a lot of money because it's expensive. It's extremely I would say like it's extremely trendy to go. A lot of influencers were before this. Now it's not gonna happen. We're being flown there and they were being like, you know, shown all the riches and stuff, the Dubai chocolate stuff, like somebody said in the chat, all of this stuff, like, oh, it's so luxurious and like Instagram worthy. And there was a satisfaction from a lot of people seeing Iran attack Dubai and interrupt the very NPC existence of these people, where they're just like going about like, you know, taking selfies and just like being stupid, completely oblivious to the rest of the world. I often wish I was like that because it would make life easier. But it was very satisfying to see that. And these people are just running away. They've never experienced this before. This is historic. That nobody has done that. Like, and now there are talks that Dubai and Abu Dhabi will never be the same again. Like it will never, like it's affected so much or so much destruction that it's going to cost them a lot of money to rebuild this, you know, luxury. Yeah. So
let's play this. I want to see this. Jayme? Yeah. Make it nice and big.
Yeah. So, Sam, I don't know if I think you know this, right? The other thing with the the UAE is obviously an Israeli-controlled vassal state, but the connection between Epstein and the royal family is also strong. So here you can see from DP World Boss, or from the DOJ files, the DP World Boss emailed Epstein about sexual experiences. DOJ documents show Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem maintained relationship with sex offender long after 2008 conviction. And you can see in 2009, where are you? This is from Jeffrey Epstein. Are you okay? I loved the torture video. I mean, you know. So there's that. Now,
so disgusting. It's so fucked
totally
up.
disgusting.
Disgusting.
How do you, so so they like to torture, traffic children, young girls, and then they like to kill them. So the other thing that happened, fam, which Professor Morandi also talked about, is the bombing of elementary girls' elementary school in Minab. Okay, and in the beginning they were saying 40 people killed, 48 students injured. Then the numbers kept going up and up and up, and now it's down to 165 little girls, and well, people were killed, most of them being the little girls. And so let's look at this video, and then we'll look at the next one as well. When you're looking at this, imagine that these are the parents of the kids finding out that their child has just been blown to bits. I mean, I'm trying to, we talk about this as people that are telling you this news, but it does take a certain stomach to, block it out. The next video shows the bloody book bags and such. So you can see that, if you can play that, Jayme, of these little girls. I mean, they know what they're doing. And this was, by the way, the United States. These were US weapons. It's not the first time the United States has killed innocent people. We know, thanks to WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, we've seen, obviously. But, and I know this happened every day during Gaza, but that's what I'm saying. Like, we've normalized being able to do this. So now they just don't hide it anymore. They're, but what was happening is, as I was posting these videos, right, as they were happening, I was getting a lot of trolls, Hasbar trolls, saying, what are you talking about? This is a lie. Because they made a fake account from a Telegram saying that they were an Iranian, the IRGC, and they weren't the IRGC. They made a fake Telegram account, and they said the IRGC admits that this came from an Iranian missile that they were trying to launch that failed and hit the school. Right? This is exactly what we see all the time with Russia-Ukraine stuff. And now we're seeing it here. We saw it during Gaza, where they lie and they say, no, the Iranians did it to themselves. Yes, I'm sure the Iranians will just bomb their own school. Oh, but they were just trying to shoot the missile and it failed. No, the missile didn't fail. And even their most ardent supporters that are like these intelligence assets couldn't lie, because there was just not enough data for them to lie. And they said, no, this came from, the West. And so they are still, though, if I had to end the comments on that, because they were flooding, and they're Hasbara because they don't have any tweets. They have very little followers. They don't really tweet much. And they all have the same thing. Like, they'll say, oh, you whore, you're defending the terrorists, and these everybody knows that Iran did this, and they'll just start flooding your comment section with this, trying to ratio you to make it look like there's a lot of support. And eventually, and some people actually buy their shit. They're like, wait a minute, is there actually, a possibility that this was actually coming from Iran? No, are you crazy? That it's factual. Iran didn't do this. But they will flood social media, because this is what the Zionists do, and they make it look like there's a doubt placed, and they'll make fake profiles and fake accounts and try to say that it was Iran that did this to themselves. And so, I was just fighting them, and I was just like blocking them, and I had to like stop the comments because they will flood your chat with this stuff.
Fam, I went back and forth, I think, with Clay Travis. His name is that dude. I can't even remember his name, but he did the same thing too as well. He repeated the lie. That's what they do. They repeat the lie over and over again. Like, oh, this was an Iranian. It's Clay Travis. He says it was an Iranian misfired missile. You dumb CUNT. See you next Tuesdays. How does American media constantly share propaganda from Hamas, Iran, and places where there is zero free press at all? It's malpractice. And then he was making a comment from an ABC News thing about, one of the strikes killing the 57 students. And I told him, it said it's amazing, while doubling down on misinformation, he's suddenly a global authority on press freedom in places he's never studied. Team sports at its finest. And then, that comment gets like close to 4,000 views, which is not a lot, but it's a lot for just a re-comment on some other dude I just threw up a really quick opinion about. But they do this all the time. They're quick to always, and they would, the most, what was the word they used about the IDF? The most heartfelt, emotional, the most humane military force on the world is what they were saying. So anytime, they blew up a hospital. No, it was Hamas. A missile exploded underneath the, they do this over and over again, and people just go right into it too as well, because they do sell this belief that a lot of Americans have, that we are humane. We are fighting for decency. So we wouldn't do that. You know what I'm saying? It had to be Iran. It had to be Hamas to make it they would kill their own people at the expense of making us look bad. And that's what people sell. And guess what? A lot of people buy it, fam. So it is a shame that they keep on doing it. So I'm glad you're dispelling what they're trying to say over there, that there was so much information they had to eat their own crow or shit, or they just move on and forget about what they said.
Yeah. I mean, it's really vile to see that, and they're very vile too. So you just have to block them and try to move on, or close your comments if you're on X, and doing it that way. And then came the confirmation that the Ayatollah. Before we get to the Ayatollah, I just want to put up this tweet. Iran becomes the first country to strike Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait, Jordan, Bahrain, and Qatar in a single day. So that's a major deal. And a lot of people are like, oh, they're going after their own people. No, they're going after people that are protecting Israel and the United States. You're fair game. They said that anybody that is protecting the United States or Israel will be a party to that. And they kept their word. If they didn't, they would look like dumbasses. So they weren't going to do that. And so they did. They did. And it is a big deal. It's historic. That hasn't happened before. So the Ayatollah was killed. That was confirmed. And on the 28th, later on in the day, and Khamenei was killed in his home, right? And so when that was confirmed, the U.S. press and U.S. media kept focusing on Iranians in the diaspora celebrating, the people that are basically Jewish, Israeli, because most of them are, and I know because I lived in LA, and those people have a lot of money, Pasta. The Persians in LA, they're not connected to Iran. They're connected to Israel. A lot of them intermarry with Israelis. They have a lot of money. They throw the biggest parties. When I was working as a bartender, I would often bartend for their bat mitzvahs, bar mitzvahs, weddings. They were the ones that had a lot of money. And they were in no shape or form really connected to Iran in that way. They were connected to Israel. So when you see these flags of these people celebrating, they're basically Zionists. They're not. It's like talking about Gusanos and Marco Rubio celebrating, the capture of Cuba or something. You're talking about the diaspora, and I, as somebody that also comes from a diaspora in many ways, we're the majority of them are the people that support U.S. intervention are not the same. They're just not. The majority Not everybody, clearly, but the majority are not tuned in to their culture. The majority support regime change. You can't compare that and highlight that and ignore the millions of people in the streets mourning the death of Imam Khomeini. You can't compare that. Fam, you're frozen again. So go and come back. And Jayme, let's go ahead and show the crowds of people getting bigger as they realize what happened to Khomeini, right? Let's just play that video quickly. But of course, they weren't going to show you that. It took an ABC, I think, until today to finally put out a tweet showing people like, oh yes, there's a lot of people in the States that are happy, but there's more people in Iran, right? And here's another, look, this is in Iran. I mean, would we go out like that celebrating, or not celebrating, mourning the death of our president? I think people would be celebrating with a few drinks, not mourning, right? Like, what world leader has that much support?
So let's talk about this. We didn't get a chance to talk about it with Professor Mohammed Morandi, but I want your opinions on. You can see it, right?
Yeah.
The supreme leader. The supreme leader, his position, really, to tell you the truth, a lot of people go point to the fact that it's a theocratic government, right? Like they went to a religious government when they had the Shah, the puppet government, for quite some time in the United States. And, that's what people will say there's an overreach by the theocrats when you have a puppet government in charge. And that's why they have this theocracy. They'll talk about it. But from what I've known and what I've witnessed when it comes to the supreme leader, his number one job is to protect the overall sovereignty of Iran. It's not about imposing theocratic ways or whatnot, and people will say, oh, well, women, they're more oppressed in Iran, and you can't talk against the government and stuff. But really what it's about, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the supreme leader's job is to make sure he's the number one, he's the line. Now, I mean, I hate to keep bringing up this name, but he's all over the TV. Patrick Bet-David's talking about, oh, they killed the supreme leader. This is more than killing a president. This is more than killing a prime minister. You killed the number two to God and their religious views. So they're trying to sell this. It's all about their religion that they're trying. And this is why we should go kill them, right? Or remove the regime, is because they want to enforce their jihadist Muslim ways on the West. They hate us for our freedoms. They hate us for our religion. But at the end of the day, what I've always witnessed is that the supreme leader's number one job is to protect Iran's sovereignty. Is that a fair statement to make? Yes or not? And you've been there, so.
The supreme leader reaffirms the spirit of the people, like the belief in Shia Islam, that in everything that they follow. And there are countless of people that could talk so much better about the religious aspect of this, that it's such a big thing for them. But it's more than religion. It's a spirit it's a moral and conscious way of living. And he brings that together for the people. He represents the same way we saw in Lebanon, right? He represents that essence, that belief, that leadership of following this moral code. From our Western perspective, it's like a moral code. When you talk about religion, like Christianity, say, there is a code you're supposed to follow, right? You're supposed to follow the 10 Commandments. You're supposed to follow, do unto others as it's done to you. You're supposed to follow these Christian values of like being kind to your neighbor and all this stuff. The majority of people who are behaving this way against Iran are not following that at all, but they consider themselves Christian. Trump considers himself a Christian. They actually follow that. They actually, when you enter a home, and whether it's in occupied Palestine, or whether it's been in Lebanon or Iraq or Iran, they welcome you with with food. They welcome you with drinks like tea. They welcome you, and they want you to feel good in their home. They practice what they preach, so to speak, more, I think, in that way. And whether it's religious or not, but the Ayatollah represents history too, because he's been around for a while. He's seen a lot of things, and the faith that the people have. And I'm not from Iran, but I think, based on what I've seen, not just in Iran, but throughout the region, that is essentially that belief. And in my opinion, and I hope not to offend anybody, I've seen that reality more from Shia Islam, the one that we are told to fear, Shia Islam, than from Sunnis, who are more liberal, but don't seem to follow that very conscientious moral code. And, when you talk about Sunnis, you talk about, Qatar, UAE, Saudi Arabia. So you can kind of see the difference, right, in how they operate. And I think, to answer your question, Pasta, we can dive into what Marwa has said about what Hussein bin Ali, who is the martyred one, represents. And she's Lebanese, right? So she understands this because this happened with Nasrallah. So she said, Imam Hussein bin Ali, peace be upon them both, rejected every offer of power, wealth, and status. And this is what I also saw, in order to stand for moral principle, religion, and the greater good of his community. It's a very almost communal type of idea. In the same tradition, our most revered leader, martyr Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, rejected American offers, money, and even political authority in Lebanon for the sake of Palestine and the wider community. Our leader of the revolution, martyr Sayyid Ali Khamenei, likewise rejected Western inducements for the same reason. And doing so, they became symbols of truth and freedom. So for them, this is truth and freedom, is to actually be who you are and be truth to your word and say the right thing. This is a tradition we identify with, refusing to legitimize injustice, rejecting humiliation, and behaving and believing that dignity is rooted in moral sacrifice rather than material gain. I feel grief, but also conviction. From the very beginning, I can already see how this story ends. Injustice does not last. No oppressor remains forever. No empire of arrogance is permanent. What troubles me most, however, is not the power of injustice, but the weakness of societies that fail to recognize moral greatness, communities that choose mockery over principle, cynicism over courage from the earliest moments of history to this day. So that's kind of should give you a bit of a insight as to what I was trying to say, that she said so eloquently there. Yeah. And you know what? Like, aside from the certain conservative codes of, dress and like dress and not drinking and all of that, if you actually get past that, the surface level, and you actually read what Shia Islam is, if you're anybody that studied like socialism or communism or anything like that, it's pretty much, in a way, very much a collectivist mindset. It's very much rooted in paying attention to less material possessions and more so like community. So it's actually quite interesting, and I find it far more enticing to me as a religion than I find actual Christianity, to be honest. And this is coming from somebody that was raised Catholic. Like, I don't subscribe to any religion, but in learning about it and studying it, to me, it has seemed like one of the least just dogmatic. It seemed quite very true to its word, So I don't know. As an outsider looking in, I found it interesting and very, very real. Like, they behave in this way. I think a lot of people who think themselves Christian in the United States lately have not been behaving this way for some time. So yeah, that's just my comment on that, fam. I don't know if you have anything to say on that.
No. I mean, well, it's interesting because we do hear, a lot of, once again, people talking about it like it's the theocrats, which is the issue, and I'm glad we pointed it out. So thank you, fam.
And so a little bit on the Ayatollah, this is what one of his reps said. He said the Iranian supreme leader refused to move to a secure location, stating that if you could move 90 million Iranians to other cities, only then he would move. So let's play this video. I think he speaks in English. Yes.
Yes, actually, Ayatollah Khamenei was in his office every day, and several times the security asked him to move from his office to another city, and he refused. He said, if you could move 90 million Iranians to another city, I will move after 90 million. Actually, obviously, they cannot do that. They asked him, we will provide you some basement to be safe for you. Said, if you could provide and build basement for all Iranian, yes, I'm ready also to be after 90 million. Actually, they couldn't do that for all Iranians. So he remained in his office, in his house, and in the morning, the aircraft of Zionist regime and America attacked his office. He, with his wife and his daughter-in-law and some of his nephew, passed away and martyred. There is also news that the assassination of the Ahmadinejad president is also happening. What's your first reaction? Actually,
Okay. So I don't know if you've seen the photos. I don't have them right now, but his family was also killed with him. And he didn't want to be moved. So he knew that he was obviously a target,
Yeah.
He knew he was a target. But what that's ignited, guys, is so much worse. I mean, we haven't talked about this, but he was against Iran having nuclear weapons, really.
Yeah.
He was more restricted about it. The next person that is in now is not, actually. Is far more modern in that sense, but it's far more, I would say, radical in another sense, and is not going to be as is not going to have that restraint. So instead, what they've created is a population that's mourning, that is upset and angry at what the United States and Israel did, and that is now going to fight harder for this. Right? So it's just, they've made it worse for themselves, because this isn't something that is logical, that is just so pragmatic. This is something that you can't fight. You can't fight against that sentiment that they have. And they're not going to stop, because this is, for them, this is what the significance of all of this, right? So, yeah. So the next one, I think, Jayme, I have is the thread of Isha. And we're not going to go through every single thing on this thread, because it's a long thread, but you guys should check it out. I'll share it in the chat, because it kind of gives you a rundown as to who he was and the history and why he's so significant to a lot of people. She says, maybe if you learn more about Ayatollah Khamenei's actions under brutal US-supported Shah dictatorship, Pasta's always talked about this, right? You want to be waving your jingo chauvinistic flag. In 1971, Ali Khamenei was placed in the Shah's prison at the age of 31. And then she talks about how he was tortured extensively in prison, and this is said in his memoir. It was the Savak, the Shah of Iran's secret police. And so that entity would basically kidnap people, put them in jail, people who were against the Shah. And she puts down that even the Western imperial outlets confirmed the Shah's brutality. An article from the Washington Post about the Savak's brutality, and there was like several things about that. This everything, including the imams and all of that, came from the U.S. intervention. It's always come from U.S. intervention, everything that happened, right? And the diaspora that escaped was largely the same way that it's in Cuba. Some of these people that were literally the top torturers, and then they fled to America, to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So the majority of the people that are dancing in Los Angeles are descendants of these criminal shahs that were torturing the population in Iran. So of course they're going to be. It's like the same as the Batistas in Cuba. So of course you're going to have them cheering. Of course, you can't. It's laughable that people are even using this as proof, like that they hate Imam Khomeini. And so she also says something later on in the thread about the reading level, because just like in Cuba, the literacy rate for women went from 32 to 100%. The life expectancy grew to 100% or more. 60% of college graduates in Iran are now women. I can back that. In Iran, all the women that I met were doctors, were lawyers, were professors. And you can go as an American to a university in Iran for free, and you will get a degree there. You can get a degree there. And if you don't know this, let me tell you, the only thing you have to do is learn Farsi, which is, it's quite difficult. It's quite difficult. It's not the same as Arabic. It's different. It's close, but it's different. So yeah. So if you somehow want to learn something or go get a degree in something, you don't have to pay for anything. You just got to learn some Farsi. So there you go, guys. I learned about this when I was there. It's quite amazing, and they offer it to anybody. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, that's that on that, fam. Let me go to Venezuela. I don't know if you saw this, fam, but Venezuela was the Chavistas turned against the government to a degree, because what ended up happening was that Venezuela Analysis posted the comunicado from the Venezuelan government, right? So the Venezuelan government issued a statement following the U.S. entity attacks against Iran. And they didn't want to label it, but they said it condemns and deeply regrets that the military option was chosen, did not mention who chose the military option, aka the United States and Israel. And it condemned Iran's more than legitimate retaliation against U.S. military bases in the region. The statement ends with a call for the countries involved, again, no mention of U.S. and Israel, and to return to negotiations and avoid further escalation, as if the victims and perpetrators of imperialist genocidal attacks are equally responsible. And you guys can see that it's in Spanish, but essentially it says exactly what they were saying on Venezuela Analysis. So they called it out. They made an article on another outlet, and the Venezuelan Foreign Ministry deleted the statement, and then they put out a new one. It just comes across like they are, being forced to walk on eggshells to not piss off the United States. It's really sad. And it's like we said, we know that it's not necessarily that the Chavistas are traitors, or that, Delcy Rodriguez is just full on betraying, but it is the fact that they don't have the mechanisms to do anything. They want to bring Maduro home. But an important point to make is that their duty is to the people of Venezuela. It's not to, unfortunately, Nicolas Maduro. And Nicolas Maduro knows that. A lot of people are saying if Nicolas Maduro was in power, this wouldn't be happening. And that's why he was taken out of power. And that's very true. I think there are different ways of leadership. Some people know how to navigate things. But at the end of the day, guys, nobody's helping Venezuela out to fight a war. They're not Iran. They don't have the capability. Iran helped them. This is why it really pissed off a lot of people, because during the time when there was the blockade and Venezuela was lacking food, Iran came in with a shipment and defied the orders of the United States and broke through the siege and managed to deliver the goods that Venezuela needed to them. And so this is why a lot of the Chavistas were upset, saying there's no way we can do this. This is our major ally. We have just decades of a relationship, a camaraderie. We can't allow this to stand. So I had to put that out there because of that relationship with with Venezuela, fam. Anything to say on that?
No. I just know that Venezuela had a bunch of Iranian supermarkets there for a while during their darkest times. Iran was always there to help them out.
Yeah. And just there's more videos, Iranian jets bombing US bases. So they were celebrating the that, but I think this is a different video. The next one, Jayme, if you can just go to the crowds in Yemen. The crowds in Yemen. Yemen was also celebrating this. Just looking at the massive crowds in Yemen, and Yemen is another one that's of course entered in terms of providing their own missiles and their own attacks against the United States and Israel. So that's I would say is a resistance. That's a given. They were always going to do that.
I've heard that Yemen hits Saudi Aramco, right? The oil company,
Yeah.
the big one, and they've been threatening to do that for a while when they hit them with drones. So I wonder what's going on with that. They really want to shut down all commerce of oil. Like, all right, nobody gets it. Here we go.
Yeah, well, exactly. And Yemen, Ansarallah in particular, if we're going to talk about it, they are among the most militant. And for them, it's like they want to make sure if they're going to fully enter that they're committed. They don't want Iran to just negotiate. I mean, they're more militant than I think anybody. And they're not there to play games.
Don't mess with the Houthis.
Don't mess with them. So these are the hospitals, I believe, that the U.S. attacked and bombed. U.S. missiles hit Gandhi Hospital. This is what Morandi will talk about. And this is where the newborns were there, and they're being transferred. Okay, so
وضعیت بیمارستان گاندی وضعیت بیمارستان صاف زده بیمارستانو.
So
what is that exactly? No. Am I frozen again?
No, you're good.
Okay.
Guys, there was something that happened interesting from the U.S. Central Command. I don't know if anybody noticed, but the U.S. military acknowledged that Iran hit Haifa's oil refinery, and this was extremely important for them. And then they went and deleted the tweet. So the United States is purposely keeping information from Americans, trying to downplay Iran's successful targets and hits, and then trying to upplay theirs, and not talking about the hit bases, is not really talking about the number of deaths and injuries. So they went ahead and they deleted it because they had put Haifa in there, and then they deleted it. But Arya caught it and put it out there. And there was also supposedly a CIA hit. That has not been confirmed by the United States. So supposedly 6 senior CIA officers in the UAE were killed by the IRGC's missile attacks. And this was it was published in Iranian media, but it was not published by or recognized by the United States. My point in showing this is to ask you all, do you trust the Epstein government to tell you the truth? I mean, they're not telling you the truth about anything right now, guys. They are literally trying to hide from you how much this is a big whoopsie for Donald Trump. They underestimated Iran. They underestimated what Iran was capable of doing. They severely underestimated the impact of what it's like to kill the imam. They thought that killing and decapitating it, as you said, Pasta, would just have them collapse, but they already have a long plan of secession. If the imam goes, they already have replacements and ways to do this. It's not going to just fall apart. That's not how they operate. That's not how they work. And so again, it shows the Western mentality doesn't understand how they operate. It doesn't understand them. And so, for us, I think this is really a lesson learned that you can't underestimate people by not understanding their culture, not understanding what motivates them. They didn't understand their audience. They didn't understand what motivated them. And now they've unleashed a beast because they're not backing down. They're more like ready to fight than ever, right? And not only them, as we saw Yemen, we've seen Lebanon, Iraq is also becoming the first Islamic country to provide military assistance in war to Iran. Iraqi forces under the leadership of General Abdul Amir destroyed multiple U.S. air defense batteries within Iraq by drone strikes. So Iraq is already playing its role. Like I said, resistance factions in Iraq, the recent election in Iraq has made this possible. And this is what's going to, drive, I think, a lot of the resistance to support Iran. So, yeah, and our friend J.B. Gratz, you remember him, fam? Johnny
Yes.
Gratz. He said ISIS works for Israel. I guess you forgot that part. So, he's pointing out that because this person is pointing out James Foley, who was an American journalist who was kidnapped and beheaded by ISIS during Obama's presidency. And he's like, ISIS works for Israel. Not only Israel, the United States, right? That's who ISIS works for. Fam, I've been waiting to get to this section with you.
Yeah.
Because I think you'll have a lot to say with this next section. The false flag. Did you look into this?
No.
Have you looked at this at all?
A little bit.
Yeah. So there was this guy, African American. A new photo obtained by Fox News shows the Texas bar shooter wearing clothing with the words "property of Allah."
Yeah.
And he was wearing an undershirt T-shirt that had an Iranian flag or Iranian representations on it. They actually made this a terrorist attack now.
Oh my God.
And somebody posted the picture, property of the US and Israeli government instead of property of Allah. Who the hell is going to buy this story, guys? Who the hell is going to buy this story? Who in their right mind right now thinks that this is like legitimate? I don't know how you could possibly think this is fucking legitimate. The guy is wearing a shirt that says Allah. And so, more on this guy, he's African born, US citizen, and he went and shot up a bar in Texas, and he just happens to be wearing this property of Allah sweatshirt. I don't know, Pasta, if you have anything to say on this, but they are considering it a terrorist attack. And now they're saying he had photos of Iranian leaders at home.
Yeah.
He just happened to have. So this just happens to happen after the U.S. attacks Iran, right? This just happens to occur. All of these pieces just line up. And his name, some people were saying, we're making jokes about his name. Ni Diaga Diagne. So some people were going crazy with his name. I'm not going to repeat what they said, but they were going crazy with it. I mean, the conspiracies are off the rail here. And honestly, I don't put it past them, fam. This is the Epstein Cabal. This is the Epstein class. This is the Zionists. Fam, I don't know what you think of this. I don't know what you looked at it. Is it just coincidence? I don't believe in
what
it.
I learned from the shooter of Charlie Kirk, the alleged shooter of Charlie Kirk, is that people are gonna just regurgitate their confirmation bias. There were some jerk offs out there from the alternate media on the right side, just kept on saying that this guy was a transgender person. You know what I'm saying? It's like Alex Jones, they're gonna repeat their bullshit bias right now, and we have a complete takeover of it. It was so crazy because the left during Biden was so nauseating, right? And before that too as well. Man, the conservatives right now in the media, the ones they've chosen, really kind of fucking feed into this bullshit right now, and they're gonna have a cake. They're gonna have a day with this stuff. I saw on Rumble. I was looking at Rumble, and I was just looking at the titles of some of the videos and the way they're kind of portraying this right now and taking the ball and running with it. You see, this is what's going on. And, then you'll hear people on Fox repeat, they hate us because of our freedoms. Why do we pretend there's a difference between us and them? And then they enter into this holy war. So no matter what, they're going to just give you, they're going to go with their confirmation bias. The government, and it's the mentality of people like a Pete Hegseth and, a Stephen Miller. These people are fucking idiots. These people are dumb. You know what I'm saying? And that's what we have at the top of the food chain now, giving us their bullshit. And attempts from people like Dan Bongino and stuff to come back around, and it's beyond. These people have broke every single promise. Everything they said they were going to do, they have not done. It's like that meme we talk about from the movie The Wolf of Wall Street, where they're all on the yacht and they're all hip hop hooray ho, and it looks like it does outside here in my window. Beautiful clear skies, right? And this meme, and it's like what everybody thought about during the election day. And then present day, it's a storm, and he's going, Leonardo DiCaprio is walking in. What the fuck is going on over here? It's craziness. That's what we're witnessing right now. And what we're witnessing here in Iran, and good for those people right now who are talking about calling for the impeachment of Donald Trump. You can listen to some of us from the get-go and said, don't vote for him, period. Don't go support him, period, right? Like, this is not going to change. He is not an outsider. He is going to have the most Zionist administration of all times, and they admitted this, and now we are doing their bidding. We're fighting their wars. I think the West is also included too as well, fam, because there's so many companies, like Smedley Butler told us hundreds of years ago, right? 100 years ago, I think it was. War is a racket, right? When you have troops and you have to move them around, you have to clothe them, feed them. There's a ton of money to be made to put them in uniforms. It's not just the bombs that are being dropped. It's the whole overall situation. Governmental contracts handed out left and right. A ton of money is being made. They're not decreasing the wartime profits. This is not the peace president. He's the piece of shit president who's increasing the wartime mentality. So that's what we have going on right nowadays, and people need to wake up to it. So when it comes to this whole false flag situation, of course they're going to feed you this stuff. They're just looking for the idiots to take the confirmation bias and run with it. All the Clay Travises and all those other jerk-offs, the Benny Johnsons and the Nick Sorters, they're going to run with this. And I mention those names all the time because they are the enemy, right? What the Fourth Estate, or if fam likes to call it the Fourth Estate, you hear me, Fred Edward? What that was designed to do, what that was created was a citizenry of a press that was to uphold, right? Not uphold, to keep the government accountable, right? That's what you're supposed to do. So if you're playing team sports in any way, shape, or form, you're not press, you're a cheerleader. And that's what we have right now, masquerading as a press, a bunch of fucking cheerleaders. Sorry, fam, go ahead.
No, absolutely. That's exactly what we have. And that's why it makes it so difficult to get through this. And unfortunately, you have those online social media people like this Patrick guy that really take up the space where independent media that's nuanced like ours, that is, on the side of the truth should be. And they're funded by a lot of these networks, a lot of the Epstein class, a lot of these Zionists. And then the mainstream media goes and regurgitates basically the same thing, with minor differences, more professional sounding, but still the same thing. And they're not getting like the truth. So this is directly from the IRGC. This is what they said. And this video went viral because I think a lot of people didn't know this information. Like when I was talking to people back home, they were unaware that this is what was happening. So let's get that video, Jayme, the video set. I'm just going to quickly read the tweet that it says. So there was a U.S. base in Kuwait was entirely decommissioned. The U.S. base in Bahrain was hit by drones, severe damage. The U.S. carrier Abraham Lincoln was attacked with 4 missiles. 560 plus U.S. troops killed and wounded thus far. So this is coming from Iran. Now they'll tell you not to believe them, but Iran isn't the one that has lied to me or to the American public. They don't have a reason to lie to you. Why would they lie to you? They don't care what you think. They're going to do what they're going to do. The people that have a reason to lie to you is our own government.
People are saying they're lying to their own people to convince them that they're standing up to the American imperialist forces. That's what they're saying.
They don't need to convince their people because their people are out in the streets by the thousands supporting their government. The only anti-government people we're seeing are the ones that are plastered on our TV screens in Los Angeles, who happen to be descendants of the former dictator and backed by the United States. So I don't know. For me, while I'm looking at this, they don't really have a reason to lie, and they're also kind of showing it when it comes to the destructions that they have, the things that they have targeted versus what the United States has targeted with Israel, which is, you know, civilian areas. Let's listen to what he says.
انجام شد. ناو هواپیمابر آبراهام لینکلن
US Navy Air
با 4 فروند موشک کروز.
Just let it play, or you have to lower the volume.
Lower the volume.
Either way.
مورد حمله قرار گرفت. انجام شد.
Right, fam.
Okay, so US Navy aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln was attacked with 4 cruise missiles. Following the attack, this U.S. carrier fled its mission, location toward the southeastern Indian Ocean. The Ali Salem U.S. naval base in Kuwait has been completely decommissioned following recent attacks, and 3 American Mohammed Al-Ahmad naval infrastructure facilities in Kuwait were also destroyed. The U.S. naval base in Salman Port in Bahrain was hit by 4 drones, causing severe damage to its command and support centers. Continuing the attacks on hostile enemy maritime targets, 3 violating oil tankers belonging to the US and the UK in the Persian Gulf, because the UK came in as well, and the Strait of Hormuz were struck by missiles and are currently burning. The location of U.S. military personnel in Bahrain was hit by 2 ballistic missiles, and other American bases in the region were subjected to successive attacks, resulting in 560 American military casualties, including dead and injured as of now. So, I don't know, but what I will tell you is during the Maduro kidnapping, Trump downplayed the American casualties, and it's now been exposed that there were American casualties during that same thing. So,
yeah, that's the interesting thing is how long could they hide a lot of that? That's what I want to know when that stuff starts leaking out, because it will start leaking out. What happened with the Maduro situation will start leaking out. What's going on with this situation? And I'm wondering, like, will Americans be aggravated and upset to the point that they want more blood and they want more attacks? So remember, after 9/11, people were like, George Bush had like a 90% approval rating then to go into these countries, and then everybody was like, wait a second, what's going on? When they later on found out that going into Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11, they were like, what do you mean? That's not what you sold us. And that's when people started realizing what's going on. So this time's a little bit different time in history. We've been through the bullshit before. Let's see how the people, digest it, what they believe. It's going to be interesting. I'd like to see more evidence of what they're doing to see what's going on. I just think it would be more convincing. People need to be convinced that Iran is not just going to roll over and play dead, that if we continue to do this, there's going to be a lot of blood on our hands. So,
yeah, I mean, I guess like from their perspective is like, this is what we've done. This is what we're doing. That's it. It's not, you're not the audience. They're not speaking your language. They're speaking to their people. So, it's not, they don't need to convince you. It's kind of like, you can decide like if whatever is true or not. And, I think what I, as an American, know is that I've been lied to my whole life. So why the hell would I trust what my government is saying?
Yeah.
So let's just fly through some of the rest of these so we can play the interview. Bahrain. So Bahrain is the area where there was U.S. military base that they're saying was heavily hit. And so the people went out in the streets, and 80% of the Bahrainian people are Shiite, and they are in support of Iran, even though the United States has a base there. And so they went outside and they were just like cheering in support. And you can play that as I talk, because I'm just going to talk through a lot of this. And so I think on the next thing, Jayme, I want to get into is they bombed Lebanon, southern Beirut last night. And they started attacking these areas in southern Beirut. So I think it's under that section. You can just start playing that.
This is Bahrain.
I don't know what he's playing. It should be the next one is southern Beirut, but yeah.
Beirut, not Bahrain.
Okay, so this is Hezbollah joining the war, issuing a statement saying that they attacked the Israeli missile defense site near Haifa. So they're saying they attacked it. They're entering the war. So that's a thing. They did that. And you can just play, I think. I don't know if I cut that out because I wanted to stop. Where are you? On the next, you can just go on to here to the next few videos and talk about yeah, here we go. So a lot of people have been trying to get out and being stuck in traffic because Israel has basically said they're going to target cities. So they gave out a decree that basically says we're going to target this city, this city, this city.
This is Lebanon. Right.
Get out now. Yeah, in particular Beirut, areas of Beirut. Get out now, and if you don't, you know, that's on you. So people have been trying to desperately get out of these places. So there's that. Next one is a tweet. He said, this guy says, Hadi Nasrallah, Trump told Iranians to take to the streets and reclaim their government, so they did, and they are chanting death to America and Israel and calling for revenge. I bet Trump expected a different outcome from Khamenei assassination. And I want to regurgitate that point. You can just play it as we talk, because that's the thing. Like, nothing that we have done, fam, is working out to our favor. I mean, the only thing they can do right now is really try to do a ground invasion and use nuclear weapons, because honestly, and I don't want them to, but they're more than willing. I mean, these people are insane. And so I really think there needs to be a stronger anti-war movement. During the war in Iraq, we saw, and that didn't do anything, but we saw it. I'm not seeing it now, because we're coming from nowhere. We're coming from, you know, a lack of understanding. So yeah, it's I don't know. Yeah, we're here, and I'm afraid for a lot of people in the region because I don't know how long this is going to last, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing is, guys, there were millions of protests all around, and you can see these people storming the US embassies, the Epstein embassies, as this person posted in this next video, and you can put that up, Jayme. We don't have to play each video, just like take a look, guys, at the numerous embassies, right? Look at all the protests in India and Pakistan. Pakistan was also quite vocal. Lebanon and Iraq. I mean, people were out in the streets protesting the US embassies. What I think a lot of people need to understand is a lot of people are hoping Iran finishes Israel. A lot of people are hoping like Iran does what the world needs them to do. And you know, it's a huge thing that they're doing, but nobody else is doing it, guys. Nobody else is taking on the United States and Israel, right? We have Russia and China that are basically talking about it, saying we condemn what the United States and Israel has done, but that's it. You condemn it, that's nice. What are you doing about it? Like, you're next. And that's what I said in one of my tweets. I said, you're next. Like, yes, they have nuclear weapons, but that's not going to stop them from using it. And the thing is, they know you're not willing to use a nuclear weapon, but they are. So they can also undermine you in other ways. And the Strait of Hormuz affects everybody economically. So this is a big deal. And right now, Pasta, I don't know what you think of this. A lot of people are saying Russia could go and finish Ukraine right now, since the attention is diverted away towards Iran. Russia could go and finish off Ukraine and really finish this. Why aren't they doing that? Why aren't they doing that?
I don't know. You have a theory, fam?
I think they don't want to rattle the situation. I think the Kremlin is really in favor of ending the war, and I think they could possibly be wanting to negotiate with the U.S., and that's it. And but the other side is that there are people within Russia that I've talked about this endlessly that do not want to negotiate with the U.S.
Yeah.
So I think that they're at a conundrum and they're going to have to choose. But I think they've made their choice. There's millions of Russians living in Israel. They're not going to ever go against Israel. That's the reality a lot of people don't want to talk about. There's millions of Russians living in Israel. Like Putin isn't going to go, all right, Iran, do what you want with Israel. He's just not going to do that. So people need to come to terms with that aspect. Burkina Faso is another one. Burkina Faso has a very militant leader who has specifically said that Ibrahim Traore has designated Israel and the United States as a terrorist states. Following the attack in Iran, he closed Burkina Faso's embassy in Washington and recalled the ambassador. And Burkina Faso has also reportedly said 200 soldiers and war machinery to Tehran. This is according to Traore, to combat American and Israeli imperialism. And Trump and Netanyahu are now listed as highly dangerous terrorists in the Sahel. This guy is quite the revolutionary.
Yeah.
So,
picture of him, Jayme. Scroll up, get him on there. There he is. I have a small book of his. This guy's pushing all the buttons.
Yeah, I'm afraid for him, to be honest, because guys like him, the U.S., I think they're too preoccupied now, but
they'll get around to him eventually.
They'll get around to him eventually. And finishing up, guys, there's a couple things that happen. Iran's security chief Ali Larijani said Iran will not negotiate with the U.S. And this is something we talked about with Morandi, so he will go deeper on that. But basically, he said Trump plunged the region into chaos with his delusional fantasies and now fears more American troop casualties. With his delusional actions, he turned his self-made America First slogan into Israel First and sacrificed American soldiers for Israel's power-hungry ambitions. I don't think he's and you can scroll down. And I don't think he's exaggerating by saying this. I don't think he's just putting up bravado. I do think there are substantial American casualties that we haven't been told about. I think there's a lot more damage than Americans are willing to admit, because there was a report that Donald Trump then wanted to talk to Iran, but Iran was like, no, we don't want to talk right now.
Not anymore.
And so I mean, so what are they going to do, right? I think we're going to see a ground invasion by Israel because that's what they do. And so here's a picture of the Raytheon, guys, the Raytheon that ended up on the floor in Iran. So here it is, images of intercepted drone by Iran's air defense in Markazi province. The drone looks like an American drone as it is marked by Raytheon. You can see in one of these pictures, it says Raytheon Company. It's upside down, but you'll see it. So these are the drones that were taken down. Guys, that's your American tax dollars, your American, weapons ending up in Iran instead of for us, for the American people. And the price of gas is going to be largely affected. There hasn't been a single economist that I've seen that said otherwise. And a final note to the end of like multipolarity and all of that, to talk about that. Cuba is not going to get that oil from Russia. The 200,000 barrels of Russian oil that were destined for Cuba were diverted while a boat of guns from Florida passes by the U.S. Coast Guard without issue. The U.S. tries to starve Cuban people to create unrest while allowing terrorist passage to the island to provoke it. Yeah, right? Talking about those weapons from the cartels. Isn't that interesting? So this the Russian oil tanker diverted. It was supposed to go to the Cuban people, but it's not. That's another point that I'm trying to make about Russia. Like, why aren't they pushing further? Why aren't they doing this. I suspect that they do want it. The Kremlin at least wants to negotiate. It's not everybody. There are a lot of people urging Russia to finish the job with Ukraine, to not negotiate with the Americans. This is their opportunity, and I think this is an opportunity, fam. As we near the end of this, this is an opportunity for China and Russia to really show who they are. Let me say this to a lot of people that are misunderstanding what I'm saying. I don't think Iran needs their help in terms of dealing with the United States and Israel. Iran is more than capable of taking on what they've been taking on. But to actually put a dent in the entire Western cabal, including NATO, including all of that, you would need some sort of alliance. Yeah. But what people need to understand is China, especially China, but Russia too, they're operating very much pragmatically, economically driven. It's not convenient for anybody to have a nuclear war. They don't want a nuclear war, not just because it would destroy the world, but it would destroy global markets, the global economy. What they're trying to do is expand their economic interests. They're trying pragmatically to approach this in diplomatic ways, which is why they're constantly talking about UN Security Council meetings, talking about having conversations. You're seeing China right now have conversations. You're seeing Russia try to tone this down, saying we need to end this war immediately and achieve some sort of ceasefire. I'm sorry, but it's not in Iran's interest to achieve a ceasefire. It's in Iran's interest to continue fighting and continuing developing what it wants to develop, because if Iran had nukes, they wouldn't have been so easily targeted. And that's the reality of the situation. And the fact is that Russia doesn't have a problem with Israel having nukes, but also doesn't want Iran to have nukes because it doesn't want to threaten Israel, because 1.5 million Russians live in Israel. So you can't have a balanced approach like that. And the reality is that as long as China can maintain its economic growth and can move, as Pasta said earlier, you talked about the Belt and Road Initiative and how this could affect China. Yes, but also China could just divert elsewhere. They can pivot. They right now they have more solar and electric energy that doesn't depend on fossil fuels. They can do a lot of things without saving Iran. And again, they don't need to save Iran. But what I am seeing online is a lot of people giving credit to China for Iran. They haven't. What have they done? They haven't really done anything. And if you talk to people in the region, they're going to consider them allies. Yes, in the sense of diplomacy, in the sense of having a good relationship. Sure, 100%, they have a good relationship, but they don't have mutual defense pacts. They don't have something like NATO where it's Article 5 can be invoked. They don't have any of that. And the thing is, you can't have your cake and eat it too. If China and Russia aren't operating like that, and if we know this, that's fine. But don't put out information that says China just did this, because 9 times out of 10, it's not true. And a lot of that is being placed on social media. And I'm going to have a deeper conversation with Vanessa on that.
Yeah.
Because it's almost Orientalist. Like, oh, if Iran fails, it's their fault. But if they succeed, it's because of China and Russia. No, they're not there. They're not helping them. They're not, doing anything. They're doing this on their own with the resistance. And that's the reality. They have balls of steel. They're the ones that are going after the Epstein class, and nobody else is doing it. We have the poorest countries, the poorest resistance factions that have the least means are fighting a battle that we should be fighting in the United States against these people. And we're not doing it. And neither are powerful countries like Russia and China. Russia's preoccupied in Ukraine, but they should take advantage of the moment and do something with that. And China should look out, because at the end of the day, just because they have nukes doesn't mean that they're immune from what's coming. And that's that. So
a lot of fake stuff out there, a lot of fake information. Thank you, CheeseSlice. If comments are deleted off your videos, that is YouTube, the auto censorship in action, not us. So this dude who's in this chat, a witness deaths for whatever, dude, we didn't remove any of your shit. Go put it up there. If YouTube takes it down, take it up with YouTube. We got a lot of beef with YouTube, right? They've demonetized us and censored us for so long. So we don't remove comments out there, right? We haven't, at least. I haven't removed any. Jayme, hey, you haven't removed any. So, I mean, fucking goddamn. Some people are just so into their own shit, fam. Sometimes it's so ridiculous. Anyways, that's that. We have a lot of the comments up there about the Epstein class. Our good friend Crab was in there doing some stuff. Snow Himbo was in there talking about some stuff. So I love those guys. Send some love out to them. Guys, all the ways to help the shows are down below in the link. If you're watching on Twitter, and there's a big audience from fams, Twitter, please go to givesendgo.com/election integrity matters. You see that share button, guys? If you can't give, then share. Let's get that number of shares up to 30. Let's match the number of gives. And then let's get the gives going. We need your help out there. We got a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of, listen.
It's already March.
Yeah, please. It's March right now. March has started.
That's
we
it.
got, there's going to be a lot of fight.
We got to get going.
Yeah, if you see a lot of this stuff that's going on right now, the way that the United States is overreacting with their military, that's going to continue to go on. And that's going to continue to go on in Latin America. There's a lot of resources down there, a lot of lithium, cobalt, nickel, all that stuff. The United States wants it, doesn't want to give it up. It doesn't want to give it up to friendly China, doesn't want to give it up to anybody. Nationalize your own lithium, Claudia Scheinbaum. We're going to come after you, demean you, throw false flags at you, try to get involved. That's what's going on. So we need your help, guys. Please go to givesendgo.com/election integrity matters. If you can't give, then share. Help us on out. Now, that's all for today's show. We're going to finish up today's show with Mohammed Morandi's interview with us. It's about 35, 40 minutes, I believe. Oh, hi, March. So there's a lot of great things there, too, as well to watch. So please stick on by. All the ways to help out the show are down below. And give on out if you can. If not, share. For Craig Pasta, Jardula, Fiorella Isabel, and Jayme CheeseSlice on the 1s and 2. This is the Mohammed Morandi interview we taped earlier today. We'll see you back on Wednesday. Truth time, truth out. Take a look at the video. We'll see you later.
Okay, bye. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the TruthWire. We are here today with my co-host, Craig Pasta Jardula, and Professor Morandi, who is in Tehran right now at the heart of where everything is happening. And as everybody knows, a couple days ago, the United States and Israel attacked Iran while they were having negotiations. This isn't the first time that this has happened. And a lot is hinging on Iran's shoulders right now in terms of the perception of the world and the geopolitical agendas that are at play right now. There are so many conflicts the United States is involved in. The United States has continuously been taking down leaders in countries one by one. We've seen the kidnapping of President Nicolas Maduro. We have seen the starvation and attempt to Gazify Cuba, ridding it from oil, ridding it from any sort of necessities that the people have, and putting a gun to the head of Venezuela's Chavista leadership with Delcy Rodriguez, preventing them from also allowing Cuba to get the oil. Now, we have also seen the United States have a long desire to go after Iran, and we have seen during the 12-day war how Iran was able to prove its capabilities, but also show restraint, unlike, of course, the Israeli entity that has continuously engaged in a genocide, continuously engaged in terrorist attacks on Lebanon, throughout Yemen, throughout the entire region of West Asia. And so a lot of people were wondering what was going to happen if these negotiations were just a delay or a ploy. And it seems that way, that there was never any intention from the United States or Israel's part to have any sort of negotiation. And so today we are here with a professor who is going to give us a rundown as to what's happened and how everything is. And we have all been watching this across social media. We have all been looking at this through our various sources, through our various ways of getting information. And the first question I'd like to ask you, Professor, is last night, of course, there were renewed attacks on Tehran. We know the United States has attacked hospitals, schools. They killed over 165 children. Of course, the Epstein, it's ironic, the Epstein Zionist cabal is killing children or abusing them. And this is what we're seeing right now on our screens. Iran seems to be the one defending pretty much the good against the evil. That's the way I've just started to look at it. Can you tell us a bit as to what happened last night and the significance of Iran's actions in the last few days?
it's not just last night. They've been bombing today, this morning, this evening. Just this afternoon, they bombed a square where one of my friends works, and Ferdowsi Square. And then when people gather to try to, rescuers and ordinary people gather to help and find people under the rubble, they struck there again, killing rescuers and ordinary people who gathered to see what was happening. This is what we're dealing with. Last night, they bombed a private hospital, ironically, the Gandhi Hospital in Tehran, and the ward for infants was a particularly bad hit, and the IVF unit, it was also badly damaged. So a lot of women who are seeking to have children may not have the opportunity to do so anymore. And so they've just been slaughtering across the board in Tehran and in other cities. And this is all unprovoked. It is for the sake of the Israeli regime.
Yeah. Professor, you appear to be frozen. Yeah, Jayme, just if you can get him to come back and go out and come back in, we'll have the recording still
Fam,
going.
do you know how the majority of the attacks are coming? Are they coming via drone, missile, off water? I mean, do you
whose attacks?
from Israel and the United States on Tehran?
Yeah, the Israeli and U.S. drones are attacks are coming from missiles. I mean, they're directly bombing. Like they're straight up they found the Atacams that were similar ones that were used in Ukraine. So that's what's been happening throughout, you know, that's been the endless thing.
Yeah. Have they been coming from the new aircraft carrier, destroyer, or just out of the water, submarines? Do you know? I'm just kind of curious because I'm curious to know how they would defend these type of attacks, you know, if they can. Because what I do think, and you know, when Professor Morandi comes back, I think there's an understatement or an underplaying of the capabilities of what the United States and Israel can do, but also what Iran can do when they strike back. I don't think people grasp what's going on and how this war is taking place right now. I'm trying to grab a hold of it and understand it myself. So,
yeah, I mean, I think I mean they're having multi-pronged attacks, and mostly, of course, it's bombs because the Iranian military doesn't have they're not focused on the naval ships. They're focused on taking those down from the United States and Israel, but they themselves aren't hyper focused on that. Good to have you back, Professor.
Where did we get cut off? Where did I get cut off?
Well, you were saying they were attacking the hospitals and schools.
All at the expense of Israel's. I think Israel.
Yeah.
It was
that's where you got paused.
Yeah.
Okay. So on day one, in the morning, actually, they bombed an elementary school in the small city of Minab, killing, I don't know, roughly 165 little girls. And so the government shut down all schools and universities. I have class today, or I had class today, but since they closed the university, I guess I'll have to wait and see if there'll be online classes. But also they've been striking hospitals in different cities. In Tehran, they attacked ironically, the Gandhi Hospital, and the infant ward was particularly badly damaged, and the IVF part or clinic was also badly damaged. So a lot of women who are trying to have children may not be able to do so anymore. This is a private hospital, by the way, and they've bombed homes. In Ferdowsi Square, they did a double tap. They struck a building. People gathered to find people under the rubble, and then they were attacked again, and so the rescuers were murdered. It is horrific what's being done. They don't have access to Iran's military capabilities for the most part because they're deep underground. The Iranians, from the beginning, they were building underground missile and drone bases. So and that's why Iran continues to fire missiles at the Israeli regime and strike American assets in the Persian Gulf. But they're taking it out on civil society.
Yeah. There's a report out there that the Ayatollah Khomeini is actually alive, and I would understand why they wouldn't report that at first. You might have a good friend out here, and I'm going to mention him, Professor Morandi, because unfortunately, I live in a very conservative town, and people's thought process from Iran comes from this guy, Patrick Bet David. I'm sure you've heard of him, right? And there's a term, the Urban Dictionary there's a term we use, Uncle Tom, for certain people who want to be white. I don't know what the term would be for Iranians. I want to say he's an Uncle Muhammad, but I don't know if that would make sense. But this is the information this guy is putting out, and he's millions of views. And he was reading texts, I think, from the Ayatollah, the first supreme leader, and he tries to make this argument that there's theocratical differences between United States and Iran, and whenever I have a chance to talk to you, I always want to kind of I don't want to say normalize, but explain it's not what Fox News puts out about Iran. It's not a bunch of jihadists running around in the streets and whatnot. It's actually a civil society. How do you beat back against that argument that's going on right now as they start using the term on Fox News, them versus us? I'm sure you have a lot of experience in trying to deal with this and trying to talk to so many Westerners who just don't know what's going on. Did you freeze again? I think he froze again.
I don't think that would be an Uncle Tom scenario, but I know what you're saying. I know.
Oh, he is, but he definitely wants permission and love from the Zionists and the and the conservatives. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
That's where his money's at, though.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So
Gerard used to work for him, so I've spoke to Gerard about him a couple times.
Well, Jayme tries to get him back on. Look, it's just, I don't right now, from my perspective, from what a lot of my friends being in Lebanon and some in Tehran as well, they're getting bombed. I mean, they don't really care what these dumb people have to say. You have very Iranians themselves with their their renewed flag going around making dances, TikTok dances. You have them crying in happiness that the Ayatollah is dead. But it's kind of like the diaspora in Cuba, from Cuba in the United States. That diaspora has nothing. Yeah. They are so far away from that.
In LA, by the way, Professor, I saw on a bridge an Israeli flag, an Iranian flag, a United States flag, and the name of the Shah. They're calling for him to come back. But please, continue from what we said. Good.
Yeah, this is something that I'm very much used to. The United States is the most propagandized country in the world, and the media in the West in general. In Europe, it's not much better. It is owned by the oligarchs, and so, or what I would call the Epstein class, and many others nowadays would call the Epstein class. And so the narrative on Iran is exactly what they want it to be. But just as an example, if someone goes to my Telegram channel or to my Twitter account, because I tweeted one of the rallies or one of the last night there was, and tonight, but last night there were large gatherings across Tehran and across Iran to commemorate his Ayatollah Khamenei's murder. And in Tehran, they had gatherings across the city, 20, 30 different gatherings, in order to protect the people so that they don't bomb them. And it's amazing. And I put a clip. I attached a clip to my tweet, but I also put a link to my Telegram account, and I put clips from all over Tehran. And if you look at the clips, there are millions of people, and they were, as the city was being bombed, and the footage shows this, they were chanting in support of the state and support of the government and sort of support of the Islamic Republic, and of course against Trump, against Netanyahu, against the US government. And anyone who wants to see it can go and look at it. I put lots of videos. This was just last night. Popular opinion in Iran is very hostile towards the Israeli regime. It always has been. Just like the rest of the world. Iran is no exception to the rule. You're not going to find any country except for maybe a significant segment of India and a significant segment of the US population, and maybe some parts of Europe, but not that many.
Yeah.
Except for these areas, no one likes Israel. So why would the Iranians like Israel? Or no one likes Trump. So why would Iranians be an exception to the rule? But the reality is that if I do this program on Al Mayadeen TV. It's an Arabic TV channel, but I do this show for them. It's in English. And this last Friday, I did a show on the narrative on Iran, the never-ending collapse of Iran. And I showed that the New York Times, the Washington Post, in the 1980s, the 1990s, at the beginning of the century, they were saying the exact same thing that they say now. The regime, they love to say regime, is about to implode, it's collapsing, the youth hate it. This was the 1990s. The youth have turned against it. There's a counter-revolution brewing. I mean, if anyone just goes to my latest, it's called Demystifying Iran. And the latest one was on this never-ending narrative of the imminent collapse of Iran. They've been saying it for 40 years, but it doesn't collapse. Despite maximum pressure sanctions, despite the fact that they imposed 3 wars on Iran, and the US participated in 3 wars on Iran. They pushed Saddam to attack Iran. The West gave him chemical weapons, and during the last months of the war, the US joined Saddam Hussein and fought against Iran in the late 1980s, in 1988. Then 8 months ago, they attacked Iran, saying it's a house of cards. Even though it was a blitzkrieg attack, the country didn't collapse. The people were united. They defeated the Israeli regime. It was the Israelis who sought a ceasefire. And now, after this is the 3rd day of war, and it's the Americans have bought everything they have to bomb cities and towns and houses and apartment blocks and civilian infrastructure. Their power is much greater than the Israeli regime, of course, even though the Israelis, their power comes from the United States. They don't have anything themselves. But why hasn't Iran collapsed? Why are people, right now as we speak across Tehran, they're gatherings. And I should put them on my Telegram channel too, so that people could see the massive numbers of people on the streets across Tehran under the threat of airstrikes. And the airstrikes they take place all day. Morning, afternoon, night, late at night. They bomb different parts of Tehran. And so these people believe this myth that is promoted by the Zionists, by the oligarchs who own the media, and we know where they stand in all this. Excuse me. But I think that ultimately after this war, Iran, it will remain standing, obviously, and the war will fail. It will be to great cost to Iran and to the rest of the world, because the global economy is going to be hit very hard, and it will be to great cost. It will come at a great cost to the American people too. But I don't think, again, anything will change in the United States. As long as the media is controlled by this small group of oligarchs. That's the narrative.
Professor, I wanted to ask you, because there have been some comments made by the IRGC that have gone quite viral because the Americans don't tend to believe them. We know that the US base in Kuwait and Bahrain, they were heavily attacked, and the IRGC has also stated a 500 soldier death or injury. So there have been at least 500 US soldiers injured or killed. The Trump administration has denied this. According to your sources, what do you say that there's truth in of course, in these numbers? And also in along those same lines, if there is truth to this, why is the Trump administration trying to hide these numbers? Because people in the United States are not getting anything remotely close to that.
I don't know what the real numbers are, and what I can say is that during the war in Gaza and the war in Lebanon, the Israelis were downplaying their numbers, and there was evidence of that. In Lebanon, the government was giving one set of numbers, and then in Hebrew, I read a speech of the government minister to mourners saying that, I don't remember the number, but like a large number of, we have I don't know, 6,000 families in mourning. But I'm not sure about the number, but it was a high number. But the number that they had given in public was literally 10% or 20% of that. So they do have a history of dishonesty, but I don't know what the real numbers are when it comes to American casualties. I think, though, that the real cost to the United States, because I don't believe that the US government cares, nor does the ruling class care about the casualties. Most American soldiers come from vulnerable classes, the marginalized, and a lot of people join the army because they have no other option. So they're not really all that influential, and their deaths don't count for much in such a society. But I think the economic costs will be significant. If the price of oil has already gone up, the Iranians are not allowing oil or gas to leave the Persian Gulf. And if the fighting intensifies, I think that the Iranians will probably start punishing the governments in the Persian Gulf more severely, because after all of them are hosting US bases. And it's through those bases that Iran is being attacked. And therefore, Iran sees these small Arab family dictatorships as fully complicit. So if the fighting escalates, then, and we see the destruction of those tankers and oil and gas installations, then even if there's a ceasefire later on and Iran allows the Strait of Hormuz to be opened, the tankers they'll all be destroyed. And the oil and gas installations will have been so severely damaged that they won't be able to export oil or gas. So that, in my opinion, will create an economic crisis that will impact ordinary Americans, but it'll impact the entire world.
Yeah, it's that was my next question. Straits of Hormuz, are they shutting it down? And when I do want to say too as well is that, I don't know what you're saying, Professor Morandi, that the ruling class doesn't care about us. Have you seen Donald Trump? He's the type of guy you want to sit down and have a beer with. At least that's what we get from the people over here, regardless of what's really going on. Straits of Hormuz, is that happening? Is that taking place? Is Iran said no more? And can you just provide a little bit of little information about why and how that's going to shut everything down and Americans are going to feel that?
Yes, for the time being, the Iranians are telling ships not to cross the Strait of Hormuz, and a number of ships, a handful of ships and tankers, they tried to cross because the Americans were telling them to do so, and the Iranians struck each of them with missiles. So the other ships are staying put. And the reason why it will have a huge impact, it already has an impact. The price of oil has gone up already, I think, well over 10%, but in the last 48 hours, but it's been going up already. So compared to a few weeks ago, the price of oil has gone much higher than just 10%. But what it will do is that it will increase the price of energy, electricity, gasoline, and if it goes up much higher, which is if the fighting escalates, that I think will happen, then the price of gasoline could triple or even quadruple. Because at the end of the day, almost 1/4 of the energy of the world comes from the Persian Gulf. Now, America, the United States, is an oil producer and a gas producer. But for the consumer, that doesn't make a difference. The people who own the companies will make a few $1 billion before the economy collapses, the global economy, because production will become impossible for many factories and corporations with very high energy prices. But the prices will go up for the consumer, and businesses will fail, and companies will fail. We already see in Europe, because of the war in Ukraine and the breaking of relations with Russia, and the fact that Russian gas and oil is no longer being exported to Europe, energy costs have gone up substantially, and that's leading to deindustrialization across Europe. Now, if the Persian Gulf no longer exports oil and gas, then I think this is going to be much, much worse. I mean, there's no doubt that it'll be much worse, and it will probably lead to a global economic depression. Iran doesn't want this, by the way.
Yeah.
Iran did not want this war. Iran was negotiating, but the United States and the Israelis had pre-planned this war, and the negotiations were just a facade. Yeah. And the Iranians are forced to. It's a fight for their own survival. For the Americans, it's a war of choice. And this will be a costly war for the United States because wars are very expensive to carry out. But the economic, if energy prices go up, as they already are, people will feel it. But the cost of war, there are many indirect expenses that gradually show themselves. And just like in Afghanistan and Iraq, the United States paid a very heavy price, but people didn't figure that out immediately.
Sam, I think we got to make sure that we share Professor Morandi's Telegram channel, because Patrick Bet-David just said on Fox News today that Iranians are ecstatic and about 81% want the regime gone. And that's the news they're putting out of mainstream media with millions of views out there. Please go ahead, Sam.
This conflict or war, I would say, has expanded already. We've seen Hezbollah officially say that they've entered, and for us, it would be last night. And we've seen southern Beirut be attacked. Many of our friends over there in vulnerable situations. We've also seen a few weeks ago ISIS come into parts of Iraq, which was, of course, part of the plan to try to encircle Iran using the Gulf states, etc., using also Jelani's thugs in Syria. And so there's a clear buildup in trying to attack Iran from multiple fronts. How is Iran coping with that possibility, and also the possibility that the United States has said of potentially having some sort of ground invasion, and rumors of them talking about nuclear targeted use of strategic nuclear weapons?
Well, the very fact that you ask whether the United States or the Israeli regime would use nuclear weapons shows how rogue these regimes are. If you meant that the question was about their weapons. When it comes to the Iranian nuclear industry, Trump himself claimed that the Iranian nuclear industry was obliterated 8 months ago. And of course, we know that the International Atomic Energy Agency has said that there's no evidence that Iran ever at any point was pursuing nuclear weapons. And US intelligence has admitted that at least after 2003, they know that Iran has never been pursuing nuclear weapons. And Tulsi Gabbard, just a few months ago, under oath, repeated that. And Trump said, I don't care what she says.
Yeah.
So these are all lies. I mean, the lies that they promote about Iranians wanting regime change, these people they have blood on their hands because they are encouraging death and destruction. And the reality is that he has no knowledge about Iran. I don't think he's lived in Iran. I think he left Iran when he was like 1 year old or something. I'm not sure. I don't follow him. But these are people who I think have serious psychological problems. People at Fox News and others who promote lies that they either know are not true in some cases, and in others, they don't care. They don't bother to check. They just repeat the narrative that, yes, people want to be bombed. Just like in Iraq, we saw the same thing. They said, people wanted to be bombed. But Iran is different from Iraq even, because Iran does have, according to US polling, if you go to the University of Maryland Polling Institute, I don't know if they still do them, but they used to do regular polling in Iran. And until I think 2-3 years ago, I'm sure they did. And the strong majority of Iranians support the Islamic Republic. Doesn't mean that they're happy with the economy or that they're happy with everything in Iran or they don't want change, but they consider overwhelmingly the Islamic Republic of Iran to be a legitimate government, and they want the Islamic Republic of Iran to remain in power and the constitution to remain in place. And that's a Western university. It's an American university that's considered to be one of the better universities in the United States. I don't know much about the university, but that's what they say. So the reality is something quite different. When you look at the anecdotal evidence, people on the streets protesting against the bombing, people in the United States carrying out polling in Iran, none of that fits with this narrative. But this narrative is a narrative of the ruling class, and they have a vested interest in promoting it in order to justify war, death, and destruction, and hopefully for them, regime change and access to Iranian resources, just like what they're doing in Venezuela and attempting to do in Cuba.
I was going to ask you, Professor, about what is your answer to, because you hear all these senators and congressional members say, they chant death to America over there. They want us dead. We have to stop them. I'm sure you've gotten that question a million times, and I know you're limited in time. But I also want to just ask you if you can maybe somehow morph the two together before you leave us. The upper brass, right? You're talking about you think that Iran will be standing after this is all said and done. We're hearing a lot of reports over here. A lot of it is muddying the waters that not only the Ayatollah was killed, but generals and people high rankings in the Iranian military. Can you give us a little bit of insight to all that? And what does that mean if these people fall? Because I think in American minds are like, well, if we kill the people up top, then the people below will kind of join America and the regime will fall. They love to use the term regime. Give us your thoughts on that, Professor.
Well, death to America is something that is chanted at gatherings, and right now on the streets of Tehran and in the large gatherings that we have tonight, I'm sure they're saying death to America. But that doesn't mean ordinary people in the United States. They're talking about American imperialism. They're talking about the regime that's the Epstein regime that's waging war on the Iranian people and bombing their homes. Just like when people in the past used to say Yankee go home, they didn't mean every American passport holder should leave the country. They meant the US government. It should go home and leave them alone and mind their own business. So to take it, it's like saying people say bite the dust, so they mean they eat the dirt. That chant of death to America means death to the American empire, death to American imperialism. And it has nothing to do with ordinary Americans. Iran has excellent relations with BRICS countries in Latin America. Iran has excellent relations with Brazil. And in Africa, across Africa, it has excellent relations with different countries across Asia, with Russia. So what is it about the United States that Iran has a problem with? Actually, the problem is Israel. It is the Zionist regime and the Zionist lobby that keeps the United States hostile towards Iran, that pushes these narratives in order to create conflict or push the United States towards conflict. They don't have the interests of the American people at heart. They're actually the real enemies of the United States. If it wasn't for the Israeli regime, we would have probably had political relations, ordinary political relations, many years ago. But with regards to senior officials, no, whoever's killed or martyred will be replaced. It's Iran has a constitution, it has civil society. This time around, the assassinations were not very effective. They murdered a handful of senior officials. Last time they did much more. But we're seeing that the Iranian armed forces are fighting back. They're firing missiles at the Israeli regime every hour or two. They're firing drones and missiles at U.S. assets in the Persian Gulf. They're preventing tankers from leaving the Persian Gulf, and if any of them try to leave without Iran's permission, they strike those tankers. So obviously, the military and civil society continues to function. But again, these are just narratives to tell the American people that this is going to end soon, everything is going to be all right, so that people will stay on board. But in the long run, this is not going to work. And this is going to be far worse for the United States than Iraq or Afghanistan. It may not be nearly as long, but Iran is not Iraq. Iran is not Afghanistan. Iran is not even Vietnam. And the Persian Gulf is very sensitive. It is probably the most sensitive place in the world because of all the oil and gas that comes from this area. And if the war escalates much further, I think that that will bring about an energy crisis that will bring down the global economy.
Professor, I know you got to get going. Just one last question. Iran Security Chief Ali Larijani said that they will not negotiate with the United States at this moment. What does that mean in terms of the prolonging of the war? And what would it take for any negotiation to happen based on the fact that we know the United States and the Zionist entity does not negotiate on good faith?
Well, that's exactly the point. So why would they negotiate? First of all, the United States is a rogue regime. It bombs and kills and attacks country after country. It kidnaps heads of state. It murders other world leaders. It bombs homes. It bombs civilians and infrastructure. What is there to talk about? And then in the past, whenever we did negotiate, they betrayed us. Or the negotiations were just a facade so that they could secretly conspire against us. So what is there to talk about with the Americans? The United States has always been terrible in the way in which it treats independent countries. But this particular regime, the Trump regime, is unique in that regard. So I don't see any reason why the Iranians would even contemplate negotiating. Right now, the Iranians are focused on defeating the aggressor. And I think that it will come at a heavy price. But I'm quite confident that Iran will inflict a strategic defeat on the United States, the Trump regime, and the Israeli regime.
Professor Morandi, thank you so much for joining us today. I really do appreciate it. I hope we get a chance to share a dish. I think we talked about it as a fesajan, the walnut dish. Yes. I want to try that with Professor Morandi in Tehran one day. I hope to do so. Please stay safe, Professor, and come back and talk to us again.
Thank you very much, and hopefully we'll be seeing both of you in Tehran.
Definitely,
again.
One day. You got it. Thank you, Professor.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.
All right, everyone.